Windows environment or Windows framework, and things like screen captures can be really painful. My previous screen video capturing software doesn't want to work on it at all. Been able to get OBS to work on it, but I doubt if any browsers, maybe Chrome and Chromium-based browsers might, but I doubt if Firefox would actually work nicely with Wayland.
I've been really learning a lot lately about staying away from browser stuff. It's just me, you know. Everybody has their opinions about it.
Well, because Skype uses any browsers, maybe Chrome and Chromium-based browsers might, but I doubt if Python would. Because Skype uses part of a security framework in Linux on BSD, and I needed to use that to Skype with I've totally removed the Skype client, and I'm just using the browser interface now.
The browser. I noticed it actually worked better with Austin too when he was using it, so yeah, that might be a good call.
And for notifications, like I said, I'm using that Pigeon instant messaging thing for just for the notifications. Pigeon instant messaging off Skype.
So far, all the audio sounds pretty sounds pretty good on all the things. I got that straightened out. Now, I'll give them a little bit of background music, that way freaking they don't have to, like, wait alone. Well, actually, we got me and you here. I guess we could kind of keep them entertained. See what's going on. Yeah, don't do that again. Don't do that again. That's the one thing.
What he said, entertain.
That's another thing me and you have in common, okay? We should not be dancing. just putting it out there, dude. Oh my God, no. Well, when Tan said that Chippendale thing, man, with you, I was like, oh my God, are you serious, dude? That'd be like me getting up there with my beer all the way down to my belly button and doing it, you know? Like,
I know, wasn't that your idea?
No, that was Tan. That was Tan. That's why. Okay. That's why I got such a kick out of it. Like, whoa, dude, you know, Mr. Hardcore freaking Catholic and shit, you know, where the hell did he come up with that? Like, you look like a Chippendale. Like, oh, that's insane.
Got to wonder about him sometimes.
Yeah, I love him to death. Like, on mine's round table, he freaking, of all things, he took us to the grocery store with him. You know what I mean? I'm like, are you serious, dude? Freaking, you're gonna take us to the freaking grocery store? Okay, I'm gonna let everybody know that the
could be a good stream.
Yeah.
Is it looking? All call is up.
Yeah, all calls is up. So.
Okay. Just
let everybody know that the call's up. I don't do that thing with the phone because I think that's obnoxious. I don't really like it when I'm in the middle of doing something and all of a sudden Skype is ringing in on me. And then
I'm glad I'm not using Google Play services, Google Service frameworks on my iPhone, because Skype notification is a bit reliant on that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get any notifications unless Skype is already active on my phone, which is very rarely. So I don't get any notifications on my phone for Skype. Which actually is good then, as far as I'm concerned. And even if I did, I probably would disable it anyway.
Now today you're actually gonna like this one. This is actually one of my strange videos, my weird videos. Okay, but you're gonna like it. because it has to do with freaking a lot of cool stuff. Like, have you ever heard of the what is it, the SBX, I think it is?
SBX?
XBX1.
Yeah.
It's the C-based X-band radar.
Okay. Rings a bell.
That's something I think you'd like. It's technology through the freaking United States Department of Defense. This is stuff that freaking Raphael is really, really good at. He on a Cafe Enigma, he kept bringing up points that were pretty cool in my opinion, but they never really stuck. Everybody kept coming in with a lot of other stuff, you know.
Oh yeah, I remember that golf ball in the sea image. Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And then plus he's a former U.S. Marshal too, so there's another topic that I want to talk to him about, and it has to do with freaking well, it actually started up in like, I'd say around like, I don't know exactly when, but it was like 2011 all the way up to like 2018. Had to do with cosmic radiation and stuff.
Okay.
And like I went on and I checked for old clips and old articles of these women who were protesting about radiation as flight attendants and being exposed to them when they were flying long term. You know what I mean? Long term. And they would get long term exposure to it. And there's actually proof now that these people were getting because of long-term exposure to radiation and like cosmic rays, that they were getting cancer. They were getting cancer from it.
I think I've read something on that line. At least some small thing.
So
yeah.
And then like whenever we were talking about it, I brought it up, and that was when I was talking about the phones and the frequencies there too. And he mentioned it too about when he was a U.S. Marshal, so I wanted to kind of see if he'd be willing to go over some of that and what his thoughts were on it. So
me being a bit more of a tech head, yeah.
I think you'd like it. Let me see here. Yeah, there we go. We got it going good. I've got it set up. I had to use the window capture instead of or the display capture instead of the window capture. And later on, when I do the upload, if I keep it, when I do the uploads, I might keep this, but I might not. You know what I mean? Because it's all about the audio for me. I don't have Tan sitting around bitching at me every moment because his pretty face isn't on the air, you know.
Or have Jeffy bitching at me because my audio sounds awful.
He's gonna do that until the end of time, you know what I mean? Like
he actually hasn't complained since I've got this thing. Since I got the previous one. That's worked for me. But he hasn't complained.
Yep. Okay, let me go get a last minute smoke in. All we got to do now is basically wait for Raphael to show up, because that's really what this is about. It's about getting the interview with him. So.
Sure. And he knows this.
Yeah.
In a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. If he comes in and you're on, let him know that I'm stepping away for a smoke, because I can't smoke in here.
Like me?
Okay. I will be back.
Yeah. What the smells are awful. Shitty silence. The Lord was in UK 9 PM. PM. Protection after filter. Okay, reasonable time, whatever that means. Environment I have, so it's 9. Strange. If you want any information, look up Mum's Net. Oh, stop anyway. Yeah, fair enough. Hi.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. We'll just
Okay, right. Make sure it's coming through.
yeah, you sound okay.
Oh, I don't have it either.
In your background,
Is it a background noise?
yeah, just a bit of background. Yeah.
That would be because I'm outside. I'm waiting for Nancy to come.
Okay, fair enough.
Give me just a minute.
It doesn't matter so for a minute because we're just gone out for a quick cigarette. Just a bit of time.
Yes. Wait for her. All right.
Bye.
Say what? Well, he dropped me off, but Hey guys, can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds better.
All right, I am back. I forgot.
Hey Roger, how you doing?
I'm doing. Sound good. So, I forgot to mute my mic on OBS. So, hopefully you guys didn't hear all
You've
the.
gone a bit quiet again, Roger.
Yeah, I know. It's because I'm sitting down. Can you hear?
Okay.
Is it?
Fair enough.
This mic is crazy. Okay, is that better?
Yeah,
Yeah.
fine.
Okay. So we have the live stream going and everything. All I got to do is hit record and we can do it. I've got some talking points set up too. So
Great.
now before we start, I always ask everybody who does interviews on here what their preference is. First of all, like if there's like we have Mark here, and when we're doing the interview, do you mind if people who are part of the panel ask you questions during the interview, or would you rather wait until the interview's done and then do questions or answers, or just no questions and answers at all? It's up to you.
I think we should like, let's say if we talk about a certain subject, I'd rather wait till I'm done talking about it, because then I lose my train of thought.
Okay.
And it's a lot of times I'll answer the question before they even ask the question.
All right. Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
So I'll use the hands up routine to where if somebody wants to ask a question,
Certainly.
I'll keep an eye on it, and if anybody wants to ask a question, then they just raise their hand, and then I'll make sure that whoever raises their hand first gets to talk first. Okay. So.
Yep.
Sound good? There's Karma. Hey, Karma. Okay, so here in a minute, I'm gonna start this up. Just so Karma, you know, we were just talking. I asked him how he'd want like people asking questions, like I always do, and he said like wait until the question's done and answered, and if you have a question during him talking about it, raise your hand and I'll keep an eye on it, and then the first person and the second person and so forth who raises their hand, I'll let them talk. Okay, there you go. So it sounds like we're ready to go. Let me go ahead and do my countdown and hit record. So we better wait till Raphael gets back. Something happened. There we go. We got you. Do another real quick sound test with me.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
There you go. You sound good to me. All right, so let me do the countdown and I'll hit record and we will get on with it. 3, 2, 1, now. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of WOW Talk. This is actually going to be a good episode. We have somebody with us that I think is got a lot of good information that, especially last year, same time this time last year, me and Karma, which oddly enough is who's here. We went through a lot of this topic, and now, lo and behold, I got a chance to get Rafael Martinez on here, who can kind of go through some of this stuff with us too, because he does a lot of research into it and everything. In the comment sections that I posted this on, I mentioned that he does have a background that pertains to being a former member of the U.S. Marshals. So I think that there are topics that we are going to get into, but before we get started with that, first I want Raphael to kind of give us a background, who he is, where he's from, what he has done in the past and stuff of that nature. And then we can go into some of the topics that we've had conversations about on Cafe Enigma, which I thought was pretty interesting, but it seemed like the topic kind of swayed off into other directions, and we never got a chance to really focus on those topics, and then we can get into the other stuff. So with that being said, I want to welcome you, Raphael, and thank you for being here. And I'll hand it over to you and let you kind of give us a background about yourself and let everybody know who you are.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Karma. My name is Rafael Martinez. I am I'm a former Marine. I also was served in the U.S. Border Patrol, INS, QRT, Federal Air Marshals, and then finally as a U.S. Customs / ICE Special Agent. I also served on the DEA Task Force, the Federal Financial Crimes Task Force, and I'm a plank owner. I'm a founding member of Homeland Security. So I view the world through that lens.
Okay, good. Now, I do have talking points, but I haven't put all of that in on the talking points. So before we get started, man, why don't you kind of run us through some of the stuff you just discussed right there? Feel free to talk about anything. Kind of let us know some of the things that, things that you want to discuss. You know what I mean? When it comes to your past experiences in those fields.
Well, I don't really talk about the generalities of it. I don't talk about specifics. Generalities. I basically I have a well-rounded knowledge of border security, border enforcement, particularly here in the United States and some around the world. I've been part of quite a few things that most people won't come across, and I'm able to piece together things that I'm seeing happening around the world and seeing how it all comes together. So let's just say like the Viper programs. It's something that I don't hear anybody talk about. I'm monitoring a bunch of news sites and podcast channels and whatever else. But part of the formation of the Transportation Security Administration included provision for Viper teams. It's vehicle intermodal. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but basically the gist of it was, when we got hired on as air marshals after 9/11, they told us outright they could only guarantee us 10 years of work. And so after that, they basically, we'd be facing a reduction in force. We'd get laid off. The only other way to stay on would basically have been to go to the Viper teams if they had gotten that off the ground. Viper teams were basically TSA inspectors on steroids, but armed. They're going to basically man all of the bus stations, the train stations, and every other public transportation system that they could. And they're also going to do interstate checkpoints. That was one of the things I had heard about, and it made sense once the lockdowns happened after COVID started. And they were announcing, or they were telling the public that they didn't want anybody doing any interstate travel, and we're trying to lock everybody in the homes, and they were trying to prohibit interstate travel. And I guarantee you that had the public not pushed back on the Viper teams, that would have been the federal response to lock down human movement in the United States. There's that, and also another key insight that I think a lot of people miss is that the we here in the United States have what we call the Real ID Act. So basically, the federal government told the states that they had to have their driver's licenses and ID cards in compliance with certain federal mandates that basically positively identified the person that was that bared that license. And that if they did not become part of the Real ID Act, they couldn't travel on public transportation without it. So no flights for you. I didn't really think about it at the time, but then I came across the UN mandate for universal digital identity, and that led to universal central bank digital currencies and everything else. Basically this universal digital identity, you were not even going to be able to jump on the internet without it. You wouldn't be able to log on without it. But going back to Real ID, if you don't know what that is, it's basically, it was everything short of a blood sample. Nancy had to dig up a divorce decree going back decades just to get hers. And they want to know everything there is to know about you. But again, we thought it was just travel mandates controlling, part of Homeland Security locking down, trying to dial in on terrorists. But fast forward to COVID, I worked as a manager. I was tasked with managing a COVID vaccination site. And one of the things that came out during that vaccination period that they pushed out their mandates was that at the end of the COVID vaccine, there was an RFID chip. I'd heard it multiple times, but once I got onto the site, I realized how it all came together. So the COVID vaccine RFID, basically they'll get the person in front of them, confirm the ID is them, then they'll take that ID and they'll scan it into their little digital system. All right. Then they take the vial and they scan it with that same digital device. And now you are permanently linked to the contents inside that vial. And why this is important is because later on, we're finding out that it is now, those vaccines are loaded with nano technology. And that's you guys know Chi Wong?
Before we start going in that direction, let me let you know we are on YouTube and we are on Twitch, so
okay.
Kind of trade.
So I gotta dial it back.
Yeah, kind of dial it back on there, but yeah, I know when it comes to all of that, the best thing is just don't try to say anything that encourages people to, like you're giving medical advice or anything of that nature, and don't say anything about chemicals, and we should be fine. So, okay. With that,
I get it. I know there's other channels that I follow that they have to skirt those issues as well. Like I said, so I apologize. I didn't realize we were on YouTube.
Yeah,
but
I should have mentioned that. But yeah.
No, that's okay. Well, I'll watch what I say. And again, I'm not giving medical advice. I'm just telling you my experiences with the surrounding the thing, the spiky thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, but going back to the nanographene self-assembling nanotech. That's where Chi comes in. He's been putting out a lot of good information about it. I also have another friend online that has started up a couple Telegram channels where he's putting all of his research into, and it's horrifying. These are papers coming straight from DARPA and a bunch of reputable medical journals. He's not digging into the conspiracy corners. He's actually, basically we're hearing the conspiracies, and then he's going directly to try to find the evidence of it directly from the government sites. And I'll have to try to find that link for that Telegram channel, but I'll get it to you. And anyway, long story short, the end goal is to have you be the chirping. You're going to be chirping. You're going to be an RFID, a walking RFID tag. So you remember that movie Minority Report?
Oh yeah.
In that movie, they scanned the eyeballs. But the reality is, it's already, anybody that took it already has it, and they're going to be chirping on it. Matter of fact, I came across a couple videos that they took some people out to the woods, and they all left their digital, their technology back in civilization, and they only have one device, and they used that to scan for Bluetooth in the area. And sure enough, the people that had been, taking the they were chirping Bluetooth IDs, and Bluetooth, the new Bluetooth, I think is 5.0.
Mm-hmm.
It's being used to track and trace everyone and everything. Matter of fact, I remember when Apple was doing contact tracing. You remember that?
Yeah, actually I do. It was right around, wasn't it like right around 2018, 2017, somewhere in there?
No, it was after the lockdowns.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Matter of fact, there was a story out of Australia. They were really big into locking people into.
Yeah, you're right. It was. I remember
camps. That. And there was one girl who went, basically started railing against the government because a friend of hers came up positive, and all of a sudden she had government officials on her doorstep. And the way they found out was through contact tracing. The devices were doing all the contact tracing for them. Those devices we all carry around, it doesn't matter whether it's Android or Apple, they have that Bluetooth 5.0 that basically associates all the IDs with each other. You can tell who's in close proximity to who. And you partner that up with metadata, you can get a really good idea of who knows who.
So, if you don't mind, I do have some things that I want to go back over whenever you start getting like earlier on before in the interview you mentioned the government agencies that were doing a lot of programs through the Viper program, and I remember a while back on Jaffe's show, there was a guy that was on there, and I believe he was interviewed by, I think it was Jim on Dragus Productions too, but he was supposed to be a part of customs and everything at a time period, and I asked him about the DOT and some of the things that go on in the DOT when it comes to like the Secret Service. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't discuss that very much because I have no idea why they don't discuss it. But back when I was running around with, my crowd, that was always a big discussion, you know what I mean, with the Department of Transportation and some of the things that they do. My question to you would be, how much infiltration do you think that, like the Marshals and the NSA and the Secret Service have, how much infiltration do you think they have in just the Department of Transportation?
There is not an agency that has not been infiltrated at the top. This is, from what I can tell, this is a grand master plan that's been in the work for generations. And, they basically, I've said this on Cafe Enigma and our podcast when we had it, and basically I said that I don't care what federal agency you're talking about. The further up you go, the more of your soul you have to sell. If you want to make it to the top, you have to sell your soul. Because I've been asked to do things that I knew were wrong. You look at Border Patrol; they're being asked to basically complete the transportation cycle for these aliens that are coming across. You know, it's but at those orders have to come from the very top. And if there's one thing the one thing that I do know is that ultimately the bureaucratic deep state is in place for a reason, and that is to ensure that the people that really run things, nothing really changes for them. It really doesn't change for them. Presidents and Congress people, they come and go, but ultimately the policies that they're trying to push that matter will always stay on track. You understand what I'm saying? You know, that's how they got Real ID through. That's how they got the I don't know. I can name Patriot Act. They can name endless examples of things that are unconstitutional, that are not only not of any benefit, but are a detriment to the people. That take away our freedom and our privacy. You know, we're living in a society where they're doing the warrantless spying. You know, where the first example that I can think of where they were doing, just widespread warrantless spying was, I think it was Operation Fairweather. Was NSA had an office in AT&T building, and they were tapped into everything. And that was going back decades ago. I mean, we're talking probably right after World War II. They've been listening to our calls for such a long time, and then it gets progressively worse from there. That's just the NSA. Then the drug war was used to push CALIA, which forced all the telecoms to put backdoors in our communications. And then 9/11 came around, and Patriot Act mandated things like all U.S. email providers had to provide our emails to the government after 6 months. And of course, they're collecting all the metadata. They'll freely admit to that, but they're okay. So they're sucking up all the data. So let's just say, they have a tree trunk of internet. One continues on its route to deliver whatever information there is. The other one is a complete copy of everything that's going this route, and that's going straight to the government. And so they're building this, the giant profile of every person. And even if there's not enough people to read it all. Even if they had AI, they still couldn't read it all. But people think because they have a 256-bit AES encrypted phone, they have military-grade encryption. No. 256-bit encryption has been around for decades, for forever. The fact that they will allow that to be exported tells you that they could decrypt it at will. So everything that got sucked up, all they have to do is decrypt it and read everything there is to know about you. All you have to do is you become a target, somebody that they have an interest in.
Okay, so I noticed that Mark wanted to say something, and I kind of butted in on him. So do you mind if he asks you something real quick?
Please, by all means.
Go for it, Mark.
Okay, couple of things. First of all, the RFID, then I know there's a couple of companies out there that are doing development, especially in Switzerland, I believe. But there's nothing commercial or nothing on the market, even commercial or within governmental circles at the moment, as far as I know. And I do take quite a bit of interest in research.
You talking about the RFID on the end of the syringes, or?
Yeah, the internal, body. The entire self-replicating nanobots, and I still argue that is still technically science fiction at the moment.
At the moment. Yeah.
At the moment.
You're breaking up.
Never say never.
He gets excited.
It's like, never say never. But your last point. Okay. Another point. When you were talking about Bluetooth, sure, we used Bluetooth 5 is the latest version, and it's really related to the distance between the receiver and the distribution point. So let's say in my case, a phone and an earbud. So which is 800 feet as far as Bluetooth 5 is concerned. But I think I suspect what you actually meant was Bluetooth low energy.
There you go. Bluetooth LE.
Which has been around since Bluetooth 4.
Okay.
So it's been around for 11 years now or something.
Yeah.
But it has not been widely incorporated into devices, or it's not been widely used. As far as you also talked about encryption. You talked about 256, 512, whatever encryption.
Yeah.
But again, there's different algorithms. Some algorithms are more secure than others, and some can take considerably a lot of time to actually unencrypt. And we could be talking about years there for
Hold on a minute, you're breaking up there, Mark.
I would say that it would take years for computers that we have. You know, and NSA is operating on a whole nother level, and that's the reason why we forbade the other agencies to have access to that information.
We talk about supercomputers such as the Cray machines.
Yeah.
I presume you know all about the history of Cray, IBM Crays. But quantum computing is still in its early phase at the moment. So we're talking about, again, years before this technology becomes really viable.
Well, that again, I'm gonna preface that with everything we see is already 25 years old. That tends to be the, you know, everything that we see in the open market is already antiquated by U.S. government standards.
Okay, I also considering white papers, scientific white papers there as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
And the more controversial point is the sort of spying on the population. I argue that this is related to the so-called long march through the institutions argument. The sort of
sorry, say that again.
The long march through the institutions argument.
Okay. So before you
may not recognise that it's more common in Britain.
Before you guys go on, I do have that actually outlined in some of the questions, and
Okay.
Mark has come into the room. I wanted to let him know that Raphael, I asked him before the interview, how we want to do things. And basically, it's raise your hand to talk and everything. And after he's done speaking, then you can like ask him a question, which we're still waiting for Mark Edworthy's question, by the way.
That's all right. I just wanted to pop in and see how everybody was doing. And check, I just bought a new microphone. How do I sound, folks?
You sound good.
Sounds perfect.
All right.
Yeah.
Good.
And I welcome you here. And with that, I also want to bounce back over to Karma because she is on fire. She's in the chat room, freaking got 5 million things to say to you. But old Mark ain't even asked a question yet. So go ahead, Karma. Karma.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Okay, so what are the most consistent ways that the government has been using access to our information in order to, as we were speaking of, like Skype and being able to intercept our data? Like we were talking about the police team, but what are they actually, just with your background being so versed, having worked for the government, what have you seen been the most consistent ways that they're actually tapping into our access and being able to monitor us? I know there's surveillance throughout the city, but how are they getting the majority of their information? Is that we're giving them by just, inputting our data online? How is that the majority of our...
Yeah, you're kind of breaking up.
She's
there.
coming in garbled on my side. Anybody else getting that?
Yeah, she basically what she.
Oh, wait, I gotta take...
There you go.
Well, I'm gonna take my Bluetooth off, but I'm gonna...
That's actually better than what you
Yeah,
just
I could
did.
barely make it out, too.
Yeah.
My headphones.
It's my headphones. Hold on.
You sound better. You sound better right there.
That's much better.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sound better right there, Karma.
Wait, it's better now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You hear me now?
yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my headphones are broken. I can hear you guys, but I can't. Okay, so what are the most which the government is actually using and doing surveillance on us?
Yeah, she's breaking in and out.
She's still cutting out.
Yeah.
You're coming in and out.
No, I can actually.
So I'm sure they're going to still make sure that
Yeah. No, Karma, you're.
Roger, you get any of that?
Yeah, I got some of it. I can do it. Ask for you, okay, Karma?
I apologize.
It's fine. Now
My background's loud. That's mute, but I want.
She's wanting to know what is the common what's the common use of what are they commonly using to like infiltrate and find out the information about us and our backgrounds and stuff and snooping on us through telephone and things of that nature.
What are they using?
Yes.
Okay, so you got to go for that. You have to go look at everything Edward Snowden has been talking about. So I think the program was called Prison, but basically it was the same thing I said before. They take the everything that's passed over the internet and they split it. They get it, they categorize it, they tie it to whoever it belongs to through the metadata, and it goes into your permanent file. Everybody's got a permanent file. So let's say me right now as a private investigator, if I run your name and let's say I know where you live. Let's say I know what city and state you live in. I can narrow that down, pull up your public record, because again, they sell everything on the internet, and I can pull up all your former numbers, your former addresses, and all your former email addresses. From there, I can use your email addresses to find out what social media you have, and so on and so forth. And I can build this pretty decent picture of who you are, what your likes and dislikes are, where do you hang out, who are who's your circle of friends, who do you hang out with the most. You know, if you have your especially if you have your social media profiles on public, which most people don't know how to lock down their own social media, or don't think it's important, or worse yet, this generation wants their profiles to be public because they love the attention. You know, they want to see the hearts and everything else pop up on their feeds. But that was at some point they did intend for that to happen. Who was that? Who was the general that got placed as the head of the CIA and then get drummed out because of an affair? It was not that long ago.
I think I know what you mean.
It's not McChrystal. It was I can't remember. I mean, I don't know. But anyway, long story short, he, you know, it was him that is attributed to saying that basically all of our devices will do the spying for them. You know, they had this in mind. I mean, everything right down to your refrigerator is starting to have smart technology into it, or placed into it, you know, and iPhones and cameras, and it's and all of that is potential vectors for them to spy on you, even when you think you're not being spied upon. I know we use Roku and we use the boxes. We don't use the smart TVs, but even the remote has a microphone in it. It allows you to do voice commands. You know, they try to sell it as that, but the reality is, you know, all those things are spying on you, and you know, you'll say something about your cats, and all of a sudden you start getting ads for cat food. You know, that's just the nature of things right now. I mean, they're trying to suck up, and the corporate side is trying to sell as much of your information as possible. On the corporate side, I don't think there's anybody that's got a better intelligence apparatus than Palantir by Peter Thiel. They have literally everything, and they have a ton of government contracts in order to facilitate this organization and its dissemination of information off the open market.
Now, she also mentioned something too about Bell Atlantic was turned to AT&T, right? She wanted to ask you that question, and she said,
I do believe so. I don't know, but I if I remember correctly, I think that was the predecessor to AT&T. But there was a building in particular that they had back in the day when everything was analog. They had an office within this building that they can tap any communications on.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I didn't see that message. Let me see.
Yeah, it's over in the side chat. Now, whenever I think of AT&T, I also think of the donut hole, and you'd probably be the best person to talk to about with this one, because me, Karma, and Mark have had conversations about this in a previous episodes. I don't know if you're...
You said the donut hole?
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's over in England. It's in London, actually, and it's shaped like a huge donut. And their whole job in England is to spy on their residents' telephone calls. Here lately, it's probably gotten more sophisticated, and it goes further than that. But at one time, that's what they've been doing. They were doing, and this was a project that Margaret Thatcher started up back in the day with Ronald Reagan whenever he was doing the Star Wars program. So
I just want to preface that as far as modern day is concerned, I'm not sure if that's still valid, because things like GDPR for the UK concern the Data Protection Act of 2018. So I don't think, at least legally speaking, it's not valid.
Well, I mean, I like using Google Maps, and as far as I can tell, cars are still parked out in the parking lot. You know what I mean? The building's still being used. So
yeah, it's the building still being used, but for not that specific purpose.
Sounds like,
at least not without warrants and without oversight. So
my question is with you. Do you think that AT&T and the donut hole basically over in England have been involved in spying on people's conversations over phone networks for well since?
I think it's foolish to think that there aren't certain portions of the government that ignore the Constitution, and they'll come up with their own rationalization for doing so. But they'll always find a way, some loophole to get around. So let's say that the donut hole is more than likely. I mean, that's going to be like Fort Meade here or Pine Gap in Australia. It's just another listening post for the Five Eyes. Am I correct?
Yeah. So that would be in this case. They can spy on their own citizens, but they can spy on the other members. So US can spy on Australian citizens.
Yeah.
And then there's a cross sort of negotiation on information on that. So in this case, US will spy on Australian citizens. Australia will spy on US citizens.
That's it.
And then they will agree on what information to pass over to each other.
Yeah, so that's basically it. So they regularly spy on their own citizens when they want to develop information on people. They come up with a target package. It's the same thing as parallel reconstruction. It was something that came out in the news. A DEA special agent blew the whistle and got it out in the national press. So basically what it is in the federal government, I will neither confirm nor deny this, but as the story goes, a special agent doing a criminal investigation can call a number and they will develop a user profile using all the metadata and give them a list of metadata, contact numbers that are who's talking to who, what numbers are calling who, what numbers are texting who, what emails are talking to who, and then that special agent will take that information and send out subpoenas to those carriers to get subscriber information and any other records they can get. And then they'll lie when they go to court about having had backdoor access to it. And it's the same thing for the financial data. So you wanna know who's sending money to who, you can call this number and they'll jump right directly on the backdoor to the financial transactions and tell you what banks to send subpoenas to build your case. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So let's say the NSA will, during the Obama administration, I had done an episode where I talked about the red dot blue dot list. I came across this conspiracy about red dot blue dot list. So basically the story behind it is when they declare martial law, they're either going to paint a red dot on your curb or a blue dot. Those that get the red dot get plugged on the spot. They get the Indian red dot for the permanent dirt map, and the ones that get the blue dot, they're considered basically they can be re-educated. Those people would go to FEMA camp. Okay, but people like me, who could stir up trouble for them and start start organizing, has the information to know where to look, would be plugged on the spot. I would not be. There's no way they could re-educate me. I know too much. That's. And so anyway, long story short, I went and tracked it down right down to the con plan number, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. It was 247, 347 something. I can't remember. It's a 3-digit number, but it was. Anyway, long story short, that was all part of Rex 84. And from what I found, every administration has had their own dissident list. But Obama took it to a whole nother level, and Susan Rice apparently was accessing NSA databases directly from her desktop, which is highly illegal. They were building their list, and I talked about this on air, and I want to say about a week later, I'm going to check my mail, and I've got a freaking red dot painted on my curb. The message was sent, but it didn't have the effect they intended. Because I went the next episode, and I talked about it, and I said in no uncertain terms, I'm not an easy target. I'm not an easy target, and if I win, I'm gonna broadcast this live on air so that you can't cover it up. Before I even call the cops, I'm gonna put this on live stream. And I never heard anything about that after that, but it was clearly a clear indication that they were listening, and I was on somebody's list. It was unnerving, but you know what? I've been greenlit myself. My father was customs. He was customs during the cocaine cowboy days, and they greenlit our entire families. All the entire team and their families were greenlit during that era, during the 70s and 80s. We got taken to protective custody for months, put in hotels, and then during my time, I got they tried to shank me. The Mariel Cubans tried to shank me. They were basically when I was working at INS detention and deportation, our offices were in the detention center, but the camp was run by the contract security, and I just noticed how much drugs was in the camp, and I know that almost 100% of the people that are in the camps were straight out of the California Department of Corrections, but I hated the fact that they were getting it in, and I don't know, I was still too young and green, and I just too ambitious or whatever, but I basically figured out who was bringing it in, and the supervisors at the camp didn't want to make this public knowledge, so they didn't charge her, they just fired her. And before you knew it, all these hardcore criminals were going, they have to go to eat, they have to go to the feed, it's mandated. But they're coming out and they're all cold turkey, for days and weeks. And so long story short, because of it, they tried to kill me. And then after that, there was, when I was at Customs, I was interdicting huge amounts of money and drugs from them that were being transported between Seattle and Alaska. And I was hitting them for $250,000 a pop in just bulk currency, and then bricks of cocaine. And so the cartels wanted to put a hit on me too. They put a hit on me too, but luckily I didn't have my kids with me up there. But it's not the first time that I've faced with a possibility that somebody's trying to do me harm. It's just I'm not saying it didn't it didn't raise my alert levels, but it's I don't want to back down. I don't want to back down. Here's the thing. The bottom line is, and I've said this before, I'm over the hump. I'm 52 years old. I got nothing to look forward to other than a walker and shitting my defense. Excuse that language.
I'm with you, man. Don't.
It's not, for me, it's not about me. It's about my kids and my grandkids and the future of this country that they have to live in. And the world in general, because this is really a global conspiracy. I think we here in the United States are the last great hope for turning things around, because everybody else gave up their guns. It was, and I know Joe Biden, he made a statement that Russian wouldn't work because you can't stop F-16s. But here's the thing. The military was made to invade other countries, not to operate in their backyard. Having been a Marine and also been law enforcement, I understand if you're in the military, you go abroad, you do your dirty deeds, and your family's safe back home. But when you're a cop, you're operating in your backyard, and your family is in the crosshairs. They're legitimate targets. Again, like I said, my family and I, we've been greenlit many, many times. So that being said, it wouldn't take long before any revolution, civil war, whatever you want to call it, started sliding to include the friends, family, and relatives of said fighter pilots. It's I don't, it's not. I think they'll think twice before they do so if they're worried about the safety of their friends and family. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even if they were willing to do it. There's a lot of very patriotic soldiers and airmen and everything else out there. But I know there's some out there that there was a video that was going around of some female butch, whatever soldier that basically went on a tirade online about how if we come to your door and you don't do what we say, we're going to put you down, that kind of thing. And I remember feeling disgust. I wanted to plug her myself. It's just, I didn't want to wait. And but that's the great debate right now. Do we have enough patriots in the ranks to fend off a tyrannical government, or will a lot of them, what are those studies that said that basically the majority of people will follow authority? The experiments of people with lab coats and and I know from my time in the Marines, we were regimentation in organizations like the Marines is very, very thorough, and I would have done anything that I was told to do. Because that one thing that they kept drilling into you is you don't ask why, you just follow orders. You basically have to trust that the apparatus at the top knows better than you do and are doing things by the book, which we all know is BS. The one encouraging thing I am finding is that there's a study I came across that basically said once an idea reaches, I think, 10% saturation within the population, it's inevitable that it will spread completely throughout the population. So the idea that the government is tyrannical, that they are trying to kill us off, that they're trying to get tyrannical control, I think that idea, that seed has germinated. I think I see signs of it everywhere. When it and a large part of that helped that along wasn't just Trump. It was actually a combination of Trump and the Q drops. The Q drops really planted the seed to start questioning things. I don't know if you guys know about that. Do you?
Yes? I the terminology thing for me, I'm not too familiar with now. Now Karma, she said she knows, and she also said that she has her mic in better use. So if you want to, Karma, open up that mic and see if it works and see. Okay, go.
Okay, can you hear me good now?
Yes, you sound good.
Yes.
My
yes,
background is a little loud, but I apologize. I'll be quick. Okie dokie. So listen, I have a query because I have email, and my emails have been receiving like these notices from like Binance and Coinbase and a bunch of different cryptocurrency sites saying that, hey, your cryptocurrency is ready for you to receive, blah, 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 blah. And I mean, it's every single day basis that I'm getting these emails, but they're attached to different names. One guy's name is Kenneth, another guy's name is Albert. What is that about? And why is it that my email is attached and I'm not receiving this money?
Okay, so you remember how I said that your information is public? That you can go on these commercial databases and pull up your name and your email address and whatever else? Well,
yes.
There are cyber criminals out there that are using that to try to scam people. And they'll get your information and they'll have your name, so they'll address the email in your name, and they'll tell you you have, I don't know, say $1,000 in Bitcoin that's owed to you. They'll come up with a whole bunch of varying schemes. and but it's based on that publicly available information. If we didn't have that, that would not be possible. And again, everything in the United States, it's when you sign up for that free email, it's not free. You are the product. That's how they make their money. They sell your
That's what the
information.
company is.
Yeah. So email in general is not secure at all. It was one of the first means of electronic communication, but it's not encrypted. It's like when you hit send, it's like sending a postcard. Everybody that handles it in between can read the contents, who's coming from, who's going to, and what the contents are, because it's unencrypted. It goes out in the clear. If you set it encrypted, then it's like sending out your message in an envelope. They can see where it's coming from, going to, but not the contents. Do you understand?
I do. I just was wondering, so are these people that are sending me these emails, are they able to access my email and then do something from a different side to where because like they'll do things where they say they're mining, and then like, oh, you were on our platform 30 days ago or a year ago, and if you don't
No.
access these funds immediately, they're not able to. Oh, okay. So that's what I
No,
was wondering.
those are phishing scams. They're trying to get you to respond,
Yeah.
and then they'll suck you in. And
Hold on.
Sorry, I
Go
just wanted to add a few things to that. Most of the time, these are just chances trying to get some money out of you.
Yep.
I suppose you would agree. It's generally just opportunists, really.
Yes.
I host my own email servers. I've got full control over my own email provisions, and obviously I've got control over my email provisions, but those people that I send my emails to haven't got control over their email provisions, generally speaking, unless it's a corporate organisation with their own internal infrastructure. But on the average person won't have control of their email provisions, and therefore they are subject to third-party companies' security provisions, and that is related to leaks and hacks and various other issues. Again, you were talking about encrypted. Protocols such as PGP, GPG, PGP, as an example, but those are the provisions that need to be set up on both clients, on both sides. So you, as the sender, has to set that up, which isn't for the majority of people all that easy, and the receiver also has to set that up. Again, which isn't the most easiest thing to do.
Yeah. The problem is network effect. So we all, those of us that are familiar with the technology, we understand that email is not the most ideal way to communicate. It's not anywhere near as secure as it should be. But as Mark said, you can set up, like, let's say Nancy and I, we can set up encrypted emails between each other because we're talking to each other on a daily basis. We know we can set it up between each other, but the minute we send it to a third party, if they don't have the key, they can't even read it. So you have every person that you ever email has to be on the same platform. So let's say you jump on Proton Mail. Like Nancy and I both have Proton Mail addresses. When we send it to each other, it's encrypted because it's not leaving the server. Okay, but if you say send it for Proton to Gmail, then it's not encrypted because it's going out of Proton's servers. It's leaving Proton servers and going to Gmail. So it's email is just a horrible way to do business. But we can't get network effect is basically everybody's already adopted email. It's the most common or most easiest for even old people know how to use email. But try to get them. Set up
as telephone or fax machines once was.
Exactly. It's something easy and familiar, They're still antiquated as just an electronic form of the mail they get in their mailbox. The old people are the hardest people to convert to new technologies, like let's say Threema. In adopting Threema to do encrypted communications between you and your friends. I don't see an easy way to fix that issue. It's kind of like there's a lot of people that still want to use fiat because that's what they know. When crypto is a better option because the government can't print more money or print more crypto. They can't forge it. They can't seize it with a couple of keystrokes. But it's hard to get people to wrap their brains around it. And to get familiar enough with technology to be able to use it on a daily basis.
There's
2 points.
2 points I want to raise. Sure, cryptocurrencies are becoming more of a thing these days. But again, you cannot pay your mortgage, you cannot pay your rent.
That's right.
You cannot buy your groceries using Bitcoin, at least at the moment.
Well, depends on where you go.
Yeah, but generally speaking,
if you're in El Salvador, you're Gucci.
I can't go down to my local supermarket and say, "Here's my Bitcoin wallet. Take out that."
So it's funny because here in the United States,
in the UK,
like I said, it depends on where you go. But like, let's say the Five Eyes, like United States, Britain, and I don't know, maybe the other countries too. But at the very least, the United States and Britain, we have been very, very. We have tried very hard to kill the adoption of crypto. I can tell you here stateside that when it first came out, there were a lot of local restaurants that were trying to accept payments in Bitcoin, and because it avoids credit card processing fees. They wouldn't have to pay 3 to 4% of their bill to just to process a payment. So they dabbled with it, and it started picking up steam. Well, I remember just going back and reading some of the studies by the Fed, and they were basically freaking out because crypto could have supplanted every part of the financial system. They talk about all the energy it uses is used to mine Bitcoin, but the reality is, if it could have supplanted banks, MoneyGram, Western Union, Visa, MasterCard, American Express, all of it. Just think about all of those institutions that it could have put out of business overnight, and how much power savings you could have gotten just out of that. Even the Swift banking network.
Okay. Well, sorry.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Well, so what I was going to say, I'll finish on the adoption of Bitcoin. Uh, there are a lot of companies that were, or restaurants and businesses that were adopting it to, they're dabbling in it to see if they can make this, they can replace credit card transactions with Bitcoin. And it started to pick up steam. And again, you remember that it said that I had previously read studies from the Federal Reserve saying that basically the worry was that they could basically supplant the entire monetary system that they control. But then what they did in the United States anyway, was they declared cryptocurrency money so that it would have the brokerages would have to follow KYC and AML, but then they had the IRS declare it property, so it would have to incur capital gains tax every time. So even if you go take your Bitcoin to go buy a Starbucks coffee, you're liable for capital gains tax on that transaction for anything that increased in value since the time you bought it. So they're basically trying to have their cake and eat it too. It can't be money and it can't be property at the same time. It's got to be one or the other. Now, if you were to do, you look at the Forex market, you can trade currencies all day long, but you can't do the same with crypto because the Forex is exempted from capital gains, but not crypto. So that's what's stifling adoption here in the United States. It's a lot of companies came out with like a prepaid credit card. It's not a credit card, but it's basically a card that you can deposit crypto into the account and it will automatically convert to dollars, and you fund it anytime you want to put money on it. It would convert it to dollars. It'd sell your crypto at whatever rate and deposit on your card, and you can spend it that way. But that could have fixed some things, at least for the people that really didn't understand how to do wallet to wallet transactions. That could have fixed that. But again, that transaction would have kicked in capital gains, and now you're on ramp right back onto the fiat system. So they have really tried very hard to put regulations and dampers on the on and off tracks to cryptocurrency. And I'm not saying Bitcoin is the end all be all of cryptocurrency. That's not my point. My point is that it's the most widespread and was the first one to be, starting to be adopted. But my thing is, I understand why they went with an open model where you had to be able to see the ledger. Part of that is you're teaching a radical new technology to people that have never even heard of this. And in order to get some legitimacy, you have to show that every transaction is secure, that it can't be is immutable, that they can't forge money, they can't create money out of thin air like they can with the Federal Reserve. It's they had to show basically have an open model. But I often said that all it takes is to piss everybody off, and they can fix that open model and close it up with an update. They can do zero coin technology and implement that into the Bitcoin blockchain, and then all of a sudden you wouldn't be they wouldn't be able to just track your transactions. I'm sorry, that's my dog in the background. Dolly. Yeah, security. But
a couple of points on that.
so anyway, that's my point on that. Go ahead, Mark.
Right. I've thought at the present moment, both the US and the UK, at least the US and UK, presumably the rest of the EEA, are not treating cryptocurrencies as financial instruments. Legally speaking, they're not financial instruments. You suggesting that they are?
I am in that you have to, in order for them to pass in order to pass Bitcoin futures, they had to give it some legitimacy as a financial instrument.
Okay.
Kind of like they made gold.
It's a gray area as far as I can see.
Yeah, I mean, it's
moment.
in order to not only the futures markets, but be able to have funds, be able to invest people's retirements into it. They had to declare. But the thing is, though, the mainstream media is a great tool for spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt, also known as FUD. And they scare everybody about cryptocurrencies, and they spread these stories about how people lost all their money out of their wallet. Bitcoin's not secure because they lost it out of their wallet, or that Bitcoin millionaires are getting killed down in Puerto Rico. Anything and everything to say that's a bad thing. It's used to do drug transactions and human trafficking and blah blah blah. That's BS, because you have more privacy with the fiat currency system that we have now than you do with crypto, because every transaction is public. It's all a lie. It's they're trying to stifle adoption of any cryptocurrency, because again, it not only do they lose control of money, and again, look at Kissinger's statement. If you control the food, you control the people, you control the energy, you control the nation. If you control the money, you control the world. You look at that, you look at it from that lens, and you can see why they will not give up control of money. And so they will, once crypto came out, you got to understand that the technology is open source. So they just stole and hijacked that technology to make CBDCs, but obviously with their own, their own tricks, so they can still create more money. They can still program it. So, look at your carbon footprint. Once they get you out of your house and put you in stack and pack 15-minute cities that you don't own. It's 2030. You'll own nothing. You'll have no privacy, and you'll never be happier. All right. Once we get to that point, they'll be able to ration you out. They don't want you to go beyond your 15-minute neighborhood. I think there was some restrictions, like you could only leave your area within your national boundary with like 13 times. You can only travel globally 3 times, or something like some crazy numbers. But I thought I found the idea of it just horrifying, and that's because I've learned more in life out of traveling than I ever have watching TV or going to these government-run educational institutions.
I just want to raise a bit of a point there, and call me pedantic if you want, but I think it's important. You mentioned the word crypto, and obviously, as I pointed out to Roger and several other people, plenty of times now, crypto is a wide range of different terminology. We've got cryptocurrencies, crypto tokens, non-fungible NFTs, and also, as you say, CBCs, centralized banking crypto currencies. When we've got to be very careful when we talk about the term crypto, because
you can't use it as a blanket terminology.
it can easily marketed love to use that term just to
No,
absolutely.
One thing that really stuck out to me, though, and it's like I said, it really does go back to kind of like what you were talking about with the real ID thing, and like with cryptocurrency, it's supposed to be decentralized. Okay, so that means that this stuff isn't traceable. You know what I mean? And I really think that's the biggest. Well, it is traceable. Don't get me wrong.
It is
Bob.
traceable.
I see your face.
Yeah.
But it is decentralized. You know what I'm saying? And I really believe that is the biggest issue, you know, when it comes to that, and that's something that I think is going to be something that's going to be hard for the general public to get over, is the fact that not the general public, but these banks, like the word banks keep popping up, you know, and financial institutions.
Well, banks are going to be long. They won't be around for long. What's the we already have, FedNow. FedNow is the rails that the central bank digital currency is going to be running on. It's kind of like the central bank digital currency of SWIFT. It's like the SWIFT for central bank digital currency. All right, and it's already been adopted. A lot of banks jumped on board. Some did not, and but the infrastructure is already there. All they have to do is collapse the economy, and they'll be able to roll out the CBDCs. But the CBDCs, but people understand about CBDCs as opposed to cryptocurrency, which is decentralized, that they have no control over. CBDCs, they can literally program it. It's kind of like Obama, the Obama administration. He used the banks to target the firearms industry and the ammunition manufacturers. You remember that?
Yeah. I also feel that I think Enron, in my opinion, had something to do with a lot of what his agenda was too. Like it just, then the collapse, what was it, the real estate? It was through real estate and everything. So
it was. I think Enron was a power company.
Yeah, I know Enron was involved. I know that much.
Okay, but my point is that in the same way that Obama used the United States control over the monetary system to target the Second Amendment, and that's exactly what they'll do with CBDCs. They'll say, okay, this is our currency now. This is, dollars are gone. Gold can no longer be used as money. You can have it, but you can't use it as money. Everything has to be done on, paid through CBDCs on FedNow's wallet. Okay. I think what they'll do is they will build interoperability to allow Bitcoin to ride into FedNow's system, and that'll give them the opportunity to tag each Bitcoin. If you understand what I'm saying.
But you
to
can
monitor all transactions.
Yeah, you can see that right now with the NFTs. Like, and don't get me wrong, I like the NFTs because, like, you can actually, it's like a painting. You know what I mean? And when you create I understand the concept there, but I also understand, like, if you turn it into an actual coin, it can be traceable, and people can track you with it. You know what I mean? Your transactions. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something you just reminded me of. In the UK, and I'm talking specifically UK here, I think it was when during Golden Van's premiership in 2004 onwards, 2004 to must have been 2008, 2009. Before his premiership, interest rates and inflation was controlled by the government. If interest rates needed to be raised, than the government. It would be done by the Chancellor, the ex-Chancellor's office. Gordon Brown brought in a measure where those financial decisions were made by the Bank of England, the private institution, the UK's version of the Fed. And ever since, interest and inflation has always been controlled by the Bank of England, and as we've seen, especially since 2007, that's been a disaster. But I think that you said banks are going to die quickly, and I can see quite the opposite. It's going to take a long time for banks to die, and they are not going to go out without kicking and screaming.
There's going to be major banks that are still up. So let's say Goldman Sachs, Capital, maybe Bank of America. I mean, I think I've heard that Bank of America is a CIA front anyway. The big banks will stay afloat, but credit unions and the small community banks, those will go under, because there's no way that they can make any money off of central bank digital currencies. Thank you, frozen Mark. But anyway, from what I can tell, basically they're gonna start basically collapsing banks, and they're gonna start consolidating. The big banks will eat the little banks. It's kind of like I had found something in my research once. They were talking about how Zygmunt Brzezinski said that basically that the population can't learn about how the financial system works because they need that system in order to do their works, was I think how it was phrased. And I can see that, you look at BlackRock, they get all this low interest money, and they're literally buying everything up. It's if you look at it from a keep taking steps back from a 13-mile lens, just they got to look for overhead view. That's the problem for most people. They can't get out of the weeds. You have to take a large step back and look at everything, the bigger picture from a distance. But they take that they need this system, this fractional reserve banking system, to use this funny money, this fake money, to fund buying everything up, so that you can own nothing and they can put you in the stack of pack cities. You understand what I'm saying? I don't. I see them all as one cabal, as they're colluding with each other to push forward this agenda. I remember there was a University of was a Swiss Institute of Technology, I think it was, did a study basically saying that 40% of all global corporate assets were owned and controlled by 7 corporations through interlocking ownership and board assignments. And that's how they say something.
Now, one thing I did want to bring up too, because it's earlier you mentioned Telegram, and I wanted to see what your thoughts are on the situation that occurred here recently with the CEO of Telegram being arrested in France. And a lot of that, in my opinion, had to do with the fact that Telegram and the CEO didn't want to allow backdoors to be implemented into Telegram so that these governments could snoop on the people that were on there. And don't get me wrong, there is a lot of nefarious things going on with Telegram, but at the same time, I do understand where they wanted to keep it to where it was anonymous. You know what I mean? Now, I personally think that had to do with the fact that they got that this situation happened, and it kind of goes with, like, even with the stuff you were talking about with the Patriot Act, and the things in today's world, I think that things are taking place that people aren't really trying to be aware of. You know what I mean? Because like a lot of years have happened since it's been a lot of years since 9/11. You know, and people have a tendency of getting used to things. So with that, I want to know what your take is on Telegram and the things that took place there.
Well, Telegram is it's run by two Russian oligarch or two billionaire brothers, the Durov brothers, and there's one that's more active in it than the other. He actually I think he owned VK, which is like their Russian version of Facebook. But according to his story, he says that the Russian government tried to get him to put backdoors in, just like Facebook did, does on our side. And he wasn't with it, so he basically backed out of VK. Later on, got involved in Telegram, and in order to prevent the Russian government or anybody else from trying to force them to put backdoors in, he moved to Dubai. I think their servers are there as well. But that's the story. But I can tell you, from a practical standpoint, that they do have backdoors. And the reason why I say that is because, we had experience where we were having a discussion. We have a group of us that we're close friends. We all live in the same area. We had our own little group going. We were talking about somebody, and this person came up to me and said, "Oh, I know what you're saying about me. I have somebody with a security classification that's telling me everything." So I laid out a little trap. I basically said I put out a Bitcoin bounty on this person, and but at the same time I told everybody that I was doing it. I told people outside of our circle that I was doing it to see, if it was true or not. And then, sure enough, FBI came to my house while I was in the hospital with COVID. But yeah, it was, So now I know that there's backdoors, and that's on Android, and on Apple I know there's backdoors because, Apple has actually censored certain channels that they think basically like some of the channels are porn channels, saying that it's I can't remember what the message was, but it basically said that because it was it encouraged human trafficking or something like that. Apple has basically blocked it. And the thing is, though, if it's truly encrypted from end to end, how would Apple even know to block those channels? How would they have the capability of doing so? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the only upside to Telegram is that it has some encryption. It's cloud-based. It's better. I would say it's better than WhatsApp by far, because WhatsApp is device to device, and so you have instances like the Bezos getting his phone hacked because the Saudi prince sent him something by WhatsApp. And the problem with that is when it goes from device to device, there's no in-the-middle security measures. At the very least with Telegram, it has to go to their cloud, which gets scanned, and then it goes to you. That's the only upside. The other upside is that the Durov, the Telegram people have been very good about allowing us to talk about things that we can't talk about anywhere else. It does allow the kooks to kind of vent their side of it too, or their frustrations. But those of us that are looking for the truth, we're getting more truth well in advance there than we are anywhere else. X doesn't hold a candle to Telegram. And if you know what groups to look for, you can get a lot of great intel. Nancy's a master of Telegram groups. It's all she does. I mean, she's got she'll post some stuff over to Facebook, but for the most part she does everything on Telegram. And again, because it's not, while it's, again, I'm telling you, I will say that at the very least they're not censoring what you're saying. So there's that. So I'll say that. But if you want to find something more private, I'd say something like Threema would be the best way to go. But I think even Signal's been hacked. So anything that has any nexus to the United States has to, remember, CALEA says that any communications in the United States has to have a backdoor. So any app or company that has nexus to the United States can be forced through an NSA letter to put backdoors in.
All right, that's actually pretty good. You did really good. And to be honest with you, I'm completely blown away with this conversation because, like, I was intending on having conversations that we were having on Cafe Enigma, and this has actually gone deeper than what we've even discussed on Cafe Enigma with you. You know what I mean? Because
we don't get sidetracked by yeah.
Yeah, I really do enjoy this. Now, there are some other really good key topics that you have brought up, but I have noticed that we're going on like an hour and a half in the actual interview. Now we could keep on going and stuff and go through those things if you want, but I wanted to ask you ahead of time because this has been really good stuff, and I know we've covered a lot of the stuff that I didn't even know, like with the DOT. I wanted that and didn't ask you. You brought it up, and then the Real ID stuff, that was great. But you're really good on another thing too. Or actually, before I get started with that, let me ask you about your days as a U.S. Marshal. Okay. Before I brought up.
I wasn't a U.S. Marshal.
Oh, you wasn't?
I wasn't a U.S. Marshal. I was an Air Marshal.
Air Marshal, yeah.
Before I became a special agent for Customs.
Okay. Now, in one of the conversations that we were having with Nancy, I mentioned the part about radiation exposure claims during flights. Okay. And you had made a comment about that, about your experiences when you were working at that position and the things that were taken on. Now, here recently, I'll throw an example out. Like a guy by the name of Song, he was working with Korean Air. He was diagnosed with like stage 4 stomach cancer. And he made claims that frequent long haul flights over the North Pole was the reason for it. And what it was is I don't know if anybody's aware of it, but cosmic radiation is higher over the North Pole, you know what I mean, than what it is in most places. So that's basically what it was. And then flight attendants for the longest time, and I even went back, and this is the weirdest part about it, because like I even went back to try to find some of the articles that I'd found that got me interested in this topic, and they're nowhere to be found. And these were before 2018, you know, where women were saying, look, they were actually out protesting against long-term exposure to radiation and being flight attendants and stuff like that, and cosmic rays. Now, I went to look for them, I couldn't find it. And I noticed that like in 2018 they finally did a study here in the United States on it, and they found that they have an average of certain cancers that are taking place among people who fly high up in the air and everything, and they're starting to cut back their hours. And that's where you had made the comment where you noticed as a U.S. Marshal they were doing that. And I was wondering if you could kind of go into that and let, kind of give us a little bit of a story on that.
Well, as far as the health effects go, what I said was basically that, I was stationed in Cleveland, and, it was a relatively small hub for Continental Airlines, but their guys were flying out of JFK, DC, Miami, LA, the major hubs, and those guys were flying nonstop, and those guys were getting brain aneurysms and blood clots in the legs from being in a pressurized can for long hours at a time and sitting throughout flights and then maybe waiting for their flights. There's a lot of that happening. And but what I found most telling was when the pilots asked us about our schedules, and it's they basically we have a 5-day work week. It's the government's not very flexible when it comes to the way they think. They're just worried about you got to work at least 40 hours to justify you're this much pay and whatever else. So when we first started, it was 5 days a week. I was doing Cleveland to Chicago, and if you know anything about Chicago, it's about one of the worst airports in the United States. There were always delays, and they caused ripple of delays throughout the nation. The FAA threatened to take them over. But I remember before, this is before they were talking about the passenger bill of rights. The pilots would sometimes have us sit on the tarmac for I think the longest I've sat there was 6 hours before they ever took off, because they didn't want to return to the gate because then they get hit with penalties. And they wouldn't run the air conditioner because they would, get bonuses for, not burning fuel. But here we are, because we have this cheese head former Secret Service guy that put in charge of the air marshals. He mandated that we had to wear coats, we had to wear sport jackets or a suit, and the problem was that it was impractical. And so you're sitting there on an airplane with a bunch of passengers, no AC, and you're just dripping, sweating all over the place, and everybody's looking at you. Why don't you take your jacket off? Oh, that's right, because you're the air marshal. One of those things. It got so bad, even kids were coming down the row. You're an air marshal. You're an air marshal. It was, it got ridiculous. But going back to the health effects, yeah, we were flying way too much. It had to do with, pressurizing, depressurizing. Pilots and flight attendants, they pick up trips. They only do maybe half a month of travel at most. It's it has to do with not only the pressurization, but again, you were talking about the radiation. The further up you go, the less atmosphere there is to protect you from solar and cosmic radiation, so on and so forth. But we were doing it at least 5 times a week. And then when they did have their system going, then we were doing long haul flights at least 4 times a week. So yeah, we were getting way more radiation, way more pressurization than the actual airline, the pilots and the flight attendants. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's actually pretty good. Now, I did find a piece that said that a Dartmouth, I always have a hard time saying that word, but it's Dartmouth or Dartmouth professor.
Yeah.
He did a study, and he said that there were high rates of melanonin and non-melanonin skin cancer, and it was mostly among women. And I thought that was pretty interesting, because that happened in 2018, and I know that I first heard about this before 2018, and I figured that's what really stuck out with me whenever I brought it up on Cafe Enigma, and you made the comments there, so I did want to bring that up. There's also something else that I wanted to ask you. That there was they were talking about this dosimetry devices that they said that airlines can use to protect the flight crew, and it's supposed to be dosimetry devices.
I've never heard of it.
Okay, because
I've never heard of it.
That's kind of what I was wondering, how much of that is actually bullshit. You know what I mean? Because you were going back and forth 5 days a week, so you'd think that a marshal would know that that's there. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, we were entrusted with a lot of information when it came to the airplanes and everything else, but there was nothing like that in our briefings. We had when we went through the training at the William J. Hughes Technical Center in New Jersey. We had a flight surgeon gave us a briefing. He never mentioned any of that stuff. He didn't mention anything about the pressurization or the radiation.
He did say that if you're going to go overseas and you get Montezuma's revenge, don't take a anti-diuretic pill. Instead, he says you want to let the evil out. So that was the big takeaway.
Yeah.
That was a big takeaway from that training.
Yeah, see, that's something else I wanted to ask too. Like, did they even give you any kind of staff training, or like, was there any kind of monitoring to find out if maybe you were affected? Like, did they have you go in and test to see if you had cancer or anything?
No. The government. Here's the thing. What I know about government: the government will not do the right thing to protect their people. I learned that the hard way when I was in Border Patrol. That was back in '97. We had the first year of El Nino hit, and the dam in Tijuana River flows from Tijuana into the southern portion of San Diego through what we call Imperial Beach. And typically it's dry because they don't have a lot of water to release. But so the dam wasn't really kept up, updated or maintained. So the El Nino comes in and it's putting a lot of pressure on the dam. So they decide they're going to have to release the water. And the problem is that they dump all their raw sewage and chemical waste directly into the river. Okay, so we set up, tents, forward operating bases on top of the canyons, and the aliens, they know we're not going to go. Well, they knew that we weren't going to go chasing them into the water. But again, I was brand new, hyper aggressive, A personality, and I didn't want to let anybody go. Not on my watch. So I would chase him at the very least waist deep. I had a bag of a roll of garbage bags at my door. I had to strip down every day, and at the door, and put it in the bag. But within a couple of weeks, the glue on my boots had peeled back. Okay, and it was, and we didn't know what was in the water, and I didn't even think about it. I figured, special operators, they infiltrate through sewer pipelines all the time. This isn't nothing. Okay, no problem. So, Border Patrol, they try to get hazardous duty pay for us. Well, out comes EPA, and they put on the full biohazard suit. They're looking like Michael J. Fox and Back to the Future, playing, Darth Vader, and the guy, puts a safety belt on, and he's got a rope on it, and his buddy's holding on the rope, and he's leaning into the, over the edge of the river, and he's got a selfie stick with a beaker on the end of it, and he's got the whole setup on with his beaker and the selfie stick, and he's pulling the water out of the river. And I'm thinking to myself, if you're going to go through all that trouble to get a sample of this crap water, imagine what it's like for me that's been swimming in it. So I never had kids after that. Because I didn't want them coming out looking like that guy from Goonies, hey, you guys, I was worried about, whatever health effects I'd have in the long term or what I'd pass down. So I just never had kids after that. But it was that was my first eye opener. Obviously, the Border Patrol said no, we're not going to give you the hazardous duty pay. So come to Air Marshals. It doesn't surprise me at all. They didn't tell us about any of that stuff. We had to learn it for ourselves from the pilots and the flight attendants that we were working with every day. Because that just opens them up to have to spend more money. And let me tell you something. The government, U.S. government, is absolutely flat freaking broke. Flat freaking broke. Back in, you guys know who Catherine Austin Fitz is?
No, I'm not familiar with it. I might be, actually. My memory sucks.
She does the Solari report, but she was Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under George Bush Sr., and they threw her under the bus because she wouldn't launder money through HUD. And Ollie North himself has said that the HUD is a candy store for black ops money.
Yeah.
All right. So they tried to throw her under the bus, but she's still part of the inner circle, the cabal, the inner circle. She says that back in '97, there was a meeting that was had, and they basically said that they decided to end the experiment of America. And so they started draining, they're bleeding us dry. They're draining the coffers. And, fast forward to 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld, that was Rumsfeld or Cheney, that basically testified before Congress saying that the Pentagon was missing $2.3 trillion. Anybody remember that?
I think that was freaking Cheney.
And then,
I think that might have been.
Yeah, and then miraculously, the plane hit the right wing of the Pentagon to destroy all the records of the investigation of where that $2.3 trillion went.
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. So, and then now, fast forward to 2015, Catherine Austin Fitts finds a government report saying that the Pentagon is now missing $20 trillion, and the HUD is now missing $1 trillion. So now missing $21 trillion. So Mark Skidmore of the University of Michigan says there's no way that can be true. So he gets his grad students together, and they audit the budget, and they find out, sure as hell, that Catherine Austin Fitts is right. There's $21 trillion missing just from those two agencies. Okay? This is not including what we owe that's on the debt clock that we owe the Federal Reserve. This is not including the unfunded liabilities the hundreds of trillions of dollars that we owe outstanding. We are basically, they're draining us dry, literally. And, they're printing money to send to Ukraine, which is getting laundered and moved back to the stateside to pay politicians off. Probably the same thing with Israel. It's just, that's how they're going to collapse us. They're going to collapse this country by bleeding us dry. And it's just going to take one black swan, just kind of like the 2008 financial crisis. It'll be another Lehman Marcus or whatever. It'll be something that causes the dominoes to fall. They've already planned this out. So you look at what happened to Cyprus and Greece. You guys know about that? The bank holidays. People woke up one day and their banks all shut down, and before you knew it, the ATMs were dry because people panicked. All the banks were closed, and they were shut down for, I think, weeks. And in the meanwhile, while they were closed, the banks euphemistically called it a haircut. They took a cut of people's accounts. I think it was 40%, and it was anybody that was over what their FDIC limit was. It's that kind of thing. Well, fast forward to 2014, the G20 signs off on doing exactly that when it starts going global. When they to contain the bleeding, they've all signed off on bank bail-ins. And then, that was in Brisbane, Australia, back in 2014. Then after that, they codified it into law in all the various countries that signed off on it, including the United States. And so the FDIC doesn't have enough money in their savings in order to cover a systemic banking failure. So that's exactly what they'll do. They'll go into, they'll have a national bank holiday. They'll go directly into people's accounts, and anybody over the FDIC limit will take a haircut, if not all of it. I don't know how bad it'll be, but just understand that when you put your money in the bank, it is no longer yours. You are giving it to them. You're lending to them as an unsecured creditor. It's their money now. All right, and then they go and lend it out for interest. But it's their money. So if they go under, that all gets wrapped up in their bankruptcy proceedings. So the same thing happens with stock brokerages. Stock brokerages cannot trade your, let's say your Robinhood account. They can't do the trades that they need to do at the speed that they do if it's in your name. It's really all in Robinhood's name, or Charles Schwab, or Morgan Stanley. Take your pick. It's in their name. They just owe you that stock. So if they go under, again, that gets wrapped up in their bankruptcy proceedings. It's the whole system is just waiting to go up in flames.
Now, I did notice Mark twitching over there. He's gotten really, really excited with this stuff you've been talking about. So if you don't mind, maybe we could have him.
Yeah, go ahead.
Come in and give you the riot act, because, well, if he can, I think he's frozen. Are you there, Mark? Yeah, I think he's frozen up. Well,
Oh no, I'm here. I'm just listening. Sorry.
no, the wrong Mark. I'm sorry. I was talking.
Oh, wrong Mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark Edworthy, yeah.
Mark.
He is frozen. At least the camera is.
He was getting pretty excited there, but yeah, that when you were talking right there on the banks and stuff, that's something that me and Mark Edworthy actually do talk a lot about, and I believe we were even having good conversations with your wife about that, about banks and how much money they actually guarantee back to you. Like, say something happens, like the bank shuts down or they get in trouble.
Yep.
They don't have to give you 100% of the amount of money that they put into their banks, and I did find that pretty interesting when I found that out, and I'm surprised that people really don't understand that even till today, because I learned that back when I was like 19, 20 years old. My first bank account that I actually got, I remember Ross Perot was running for president, so and I learned about that through Citibank. You remember all the crap that happened with them back in the 90s,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover when it comes to the flight air attendants now. But there is some really, really cool shit that you did mention that was after that. And the one thing that you mentioned that really stuck out to me was the echelon ruling. Would you be willing to discuss the echelon ruling and the echelon surveillance system, to be honest? Just say whatever you want about both of them.
I'm not familiar with the echelon surveillance system. At least it's not coming to my mind right now. I'm pretty spent. But as far as the echelon ruling, basically, so the echelon ruling is basically saying that you cannot make laws through regulation. You have to have laws that give it force, and that's always been the case. So executive orders are a perfect example. Their executive orders are just orders from the chief executive to the agencies on what direction he wants them to go. He's expressing the commander's intent to those agencies for them to carry out. But it's gone beyond that. Now they're creating basically laws from the Resolute desk, saying, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do whatever, even though it's the Congress and the Senate's job to create those laws. Trying to think of a good instance of that. Let's get past executive orders, but the big part is really that the agencies that enforce these laws cannot create rules on the fly. So let's say the big one is the ATF. The ATF was at center stage on this one. So basically they're deciding, just out of nowhere, there's no law saying that people can't have bump stocks, that people can't have binary triggers, that people can't have take your pick. They've been trying to pass bans on all kinds of stuff for a long time. And but the Congress never, and the government never created laws banning those things. They have nothing to do with fully automatic firearms. They have nothing to do with suppressors. Those are the things that are typically regulated. But they were just arbitrarily saying, okay, well, we're going to put this on the list of banned weapons or banned items. And he got so bad, it actually went to the Supreme Court, and they said, well, government agencies in general cannot make laws up. It has to have a law to support it. It's kind of, in this, and I came back with, it's kind of like when I worked for INS. We have the Immigration and Nationality Act that gave the regulations that the INS had its authority. You can't, the regulations are just basically the law says, okay, if you're an illegal alien, you can be administratively deported. The regulations say this is how we're going to go about it. That's all regulations are. But the government agencies have far exceeded that. The point towards the end of it, that conversation, I remember saying one of the ones that's going to be very interesting when it finally comes up in the courts is the IRS, because the IRS makes up the rules as they go along all the time. All right, it's just if you really think you own your productive output, your salary, you're kidding yourself, because basically the IRS, it's not like every year they decide, the Congress decides what your tax percentage rate is. Going back in World War II, I think it was up to like 90% income tax rate at the highest levels. But that's that just proves you don't own it. You basically, the government owns your productive output, and they decide how much you get to keep. But the IRS passes regulations all the time that they basically try to say that these are the rules. It's right here. We wrote it in this manual. This is your instruction booklet for taxation. But they can't show you the actual statute that gives that regulation its power, that's its authority. And one of the personal income tax has been questioned by multiple IRS agents and special agents, and they've been drummed out of the IRS because they dared to question it. Sherry Peel Jackson? She was an IRS agent. She got railroaded. What was his name? I don't remember the name, but there were like 7 of them, and they all got drummed out. But basically, it's but they questioned the IRS that triggered their railroading. Was we cannot find a statute that mandates the personal income tax, that it does not apply to the majority of Americans in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, they were drummed out. Now, Aaron Russo, he was a Hollywood producer. He produced Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. He actually ran for governor of Nevada, and he befriended, or Nick Rockefeller befriended him and tried to lure him into the cabal. And he wasn't with it. He's not that kind of guy. He's more of a common people. He's a common people type of person. He's and anyway, he did an interview with Alex Jones, and he talked about all of this, even right down to the microchipping, the digital identity, the tying your CBDCs to it, and travel bans, and all of it. It's a fantastic point. But he also did a documentary questioning the legitimacy of the IRS, and he even questioned a former commissioner of the IRS whether he says it's voluntary, and says, well, if it's voluntary, that means we don't have to pay it. He says, well, it's voluntary, like you stop at a stoplight. The argument does not hold water. There is no law, as far as I can tell, there is no law mandating the personal income tax, but they're enforcing it anyway. And anybody that's questioned it, like what's his name, Erwin Schiff, he's the father of Peter Schiff. He questioned it in court, and they threw him in the slam. They railroaded him in court, and the judge literally said when Erwin Schiff went to cite Supreme Court decisions on this, they said the Supreme Court doesn't matter here. Basically, they're saying that the rulings don't matter. They ignored every Supreme Court ruling beforehand, saying that the personal income tax is illegal, and that there's even supposedly a a ruling saying that the 16th Amendment wasn't properly ratified. And those are all important arguments because, they try to pass, Obama tried to pass that UN weapons ban, and they try to enforce it without ratifying it in the United States. It's illegal. You can't do it.
Right.
But our governments have basically gone from an apparatus for basically managing the country and providing for the common defense. Build the roads, build the parks, build an army to protect us. They've gone from that to basically ruling us on behalf of the slave masters, the people at the very top. Federal government is middle management at best. There's a global power structure that goes way above them, and I think a lot of it, it's especially on the banking side. From what I understand, how I understand the whole system works is it centers at the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland. Yeah, I'm losing track of thought.
No.
Right. Go ahead.
Now, whenever I first heard about the echelon rulings, it actually, from what I learned, it stemmed way back in 2001, and it actually started with the European parliaments. Now, the thing that really got to me was when I found out about it, they were talking about the surveillance systems that included systems that like went in and would survey people, and like you're talking about the IRS, okay? And one of the things that I always picked up on was they were always talking about the IRS targeting people who were taxpayers too, and they would survey them and they would investigate their findings. Now with the echelon. With the echelon surveillance system, that kind of goes into what I was talking about earlier with the telecommunications. It's actually a spy network, and it was also operated by the National Security Agent, the NSA, and other countries. Like Canada, the United Kingdom was doing it, Australia, and New Zealand. They were all doing it.
The Five Eyes, yeah.
Yeah. And
they share their technology and they all operate together. So when I said earlier that the NSA at the base level still surveil everybody without a warrant, but if they have to use it to railroad somebody, they have to basically they have to do like a parallel reconstruction. So they'll say, hey, Britain, can you spy on this guy and then give us the information so we can use it in court against them, that kind of thing.
They also, in that report, they also found out that the European Union only had limited ability to stop the surveillance. Like they didn't have full control over saying, look, you're not allowed to survey this. They only had limited abilities. So I thought that was kind of interesting, that like this whole system has pretty much taken on a life of its own, and the European Union can't even freaking control it. It's like a beast that's running wild, So.
Yeah. Well, I like I was saying earlier. I mean, I think the technology that we see is, on average, it's 25 years old. It's like I was saying earlier, there was talking about computer systems and whatnot, but there's, I know there are white papers for stuff that we see, we're talking about now, but I'm saying is there are levels above our government that even the president isn't allowed to know about. The secret space programs come to mind. And there's no telling what kind of technology they have at that level and how much of that has trickled down to the NSA level. There are satellites basically, as I understand it, there are satellites that they have that basically can see everything you're doing. It's kind of like how security researchers have been being able to use your Wi-Fi router to do like a bat signal, like an echolocation, and be able to map out your entire room, who's where and who's doing what.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're seeing through walls using your radar or your Wi-Fi. But that basically what they're talking about with the satellites is it's on steroids. It's from up in space. They can basically I don't know what technology they use to do it, but yes.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I actually used to argue with a friend of mine, Caleb, because it was back when I was smoking pot and everything. We'd get high and start talking about dumb shit, you know. And we got into an argument where I was telling him, I was like, look, man, you know, if the military wanted to, they could figure out where me and you are in a room, and they could send a ballistic missile that was small enough to kill you and leave me alive.
Absolutely.
You know, and he had such a hard time believing that, and that was back in the late 90s. And I remember that because I used to see documentaries on that stuff all the time. I always loved watching documentaries, you know, especially the military ones, and it was open information. Anybody could find out about it, you know. So
yeah.
Now, I'm glad that you mentioned the secret space program and all that stuff, because this kind of gets us into the more intense stuff about you, the good stuff. So I wanna move on to NextRad.
I'm not that interesting.
Yeah, but you.
I just like the research.
You love NextRad though, and I know you've been doing a lot of research into NextRad. So, I'm not even gonna say anything about it. I just want you to open it up and say what you found out and all the good stuff, because you're really good at this.
Oh. Well, my initial exposure to this was when I was stationed in Alaska. I knew somebody in the Air Force, and they actually took me on a hike, and I got to see the HARP facility. And I kind of got a broad eye view. Basically, they gave me a general description of what they do. They basically said it was over the horizon radar. And that was bullshit. It was a lot more than that. But later on, I remember seeing a Air Force officer testifying before Congress, basically saying that they were done with their HARP research and that they turned the keys over to the University of Alaska. And shortly after that, the SBX-1 came online, which is basically looks like an oil platform with a bunch of power generation infrastructure built in, and then it's got a big old dome, a golf ball dome with a radar. Looks like a radar dish on it. So that's that would be the NextRad. Whether it's not geoengineering, it's more of them controlling storms. It's not that they're making it; they're just controlling it. They're able to use Doppler NextRad radar to strengthen and guide storms. So the most recent example would have been Hurricane Helene. There's a guy named Dane Wigington who runs an organization called geoengineeringwatch.org, and he did a whole bunch of interviews where he's showing the actual radar image of Helene coming up through the panhandle of Florida, and how there was all this chaff in blue on the west side of the storm, and then you can see the storm in green. I mean, there was a clear delineation of the two, but apparently that chaff that was in the air is the stuff that they've been spraying all over the skies in the United States. What we call chemtrails. Basically, planes are flying and they're trying to say it's contrails, but no, it doesn't behave like contrails. It holds its linear shape for a while, and then all of a sudden it starts to blanket out like it's dispersing itself, and it becomes like just a thin sheet of cloud cover, I guess you could say, super thin. But then they're checkerboarding the skies with this stuff, and apparently that's all part of it. So one of the things that they're finding now is that we have a whole bunch of aluminum and barium and other metals in our ground, in the groundwater and in the soil, and that is what they believe is causing, you know, the drying up of the forest and the tinderbox wildfires, because the aluminum is preventing the trees from absorbing water, which made some kind of strange sense to me, because I use like Right Guard antiperspirant, and one of the key components of that to keep you from sweating is aluminum. I didn't know, but that was my putting my two and two together there. But going back to that, I mean, just the way the whole storm behaved, you know, it was just powering up to, I think it was I can't remember if it was Helene or Milton, but it powered up to a Cat 5 right off the coast of the Yucatan in Mexico, and took off. And but anyway, when Dane showed the radar track on, I think it was Helene. Helene was the one that went to North Carolina. He showed also that there were like beams of high energy radiation being projected into the storm at the Panhandle and into Georgia. It was that long. The beam was that long. So again, you know, I'm not an expert in that it's not my field, but I do find it interesting, because our government has been experimenting with geoengineering for a long time. You know, it was President Johnson made a public speech about how that we'll basically have weather satellites be able to control the weather, and he who controls the weather will control the world. That was basically the gist of his speech. But then after that, we have clear weather weapon programs like Operation Popeye in Vietnam, where we use cloud seeding to rain out the Ho Chi Minh Trail going through the Golden Triangle. It basically is the Viet Cong were being reinforced by being resupplied by VC going through the neutral countries of Cambodia and Laos, and to bypass all our checkpoints and defenses. So we basically use Operation Popeye to wash out the trails there. There was a couple of other programs. I think there were like 7 other. One of them was Operation Cirrus, where they try to redirect a hurricane that was coming through Florida, and they redirected it right to Georgia, and it caused catastrophic damage. And they try to play it down. They try to cover it up. But that's another example. I mean, they've been doing this for a while. It's just we don't. And I think part of it is, you know, I think part of it is them wanting to control the weather for their own purposes. I think part of it is land grab. You know, there's a lot of information being thrown about saying that BlackRock bought into Albemarle, which is the mining company in North Carolina that was, I think, digging up lithium from that area. You got wildfires raging in Wyoming, where they supposedly had neodyme. I think it goes in magnets, and then also lithium in there, and then you got the wildfires in Lahaina, in Maui. I mean, that was a very abnormal fire. I mean, the sheer temperatures were melting cars far beyond a car fire. It was melting it down, and the fact that they closed off the entire city and forbade anybody from going back to where their homes were at was pretty telling. And also, you know, what I also found telling was, you know, after that, there was, if you look at aerial photographs, there were certain houses that the fires went around. Like it didn't even touch it, and it was basically houses with blue roofs. And it's conspiracy theory, yeah, but it you know, maybe, I don't know, the wind somehow, you know, kept it from hitting the house. No, but then you got Joe Biden jumping on national television talking about how certain houses with blue roofs weren't touched. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene is ranting about Jewish space lasers. It's just there's so many things happening that we have no clue about because there is no transparency in our government. But yet they want to know everything about us. I mean, the scales are flipped. I mean, we used to be the bosses of our government. Now the government is our boss.
Yep.
They're the ones telling us what to do. And it comes. I also see it as part of the problem is we've gone from a decentralized power model where everybody was armed and they were able to protect themselves, and the sheriffs have the ability to not only nullify federal law, but they could empower a posse, deputize a whole bunch of people and surge up at any given moment to deal with whatever issues were at hand at the time. But we've gone from that to a model of where the police hold a monopoly of power, and they will not give it up. Not only will they not give it up, that's where we get to the ATF trying to ban all these guns.
Now, we have Mark back. He has this funky look on his face, and I know that he's missed out on a lot of good stuff because I know he was fired up and he got excited and he froze his computer up. He had that froze face, just staring into the computer and not moving. It took us like 15 minutes to figure out he was gone. So, do you want to say something, Mark Edworthy?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I've missed quite a bit.
That's all right.
It's
it happens.
Yeah, my internet died or something died. I'm not sure.
No, I do have something.
No,
I do have something. Now, I seen the post that Nancy made about the blue, the rooftops, and it made me stop and actually think about it because there is something that I do believe when it comes to NextRad and Doppler even. Now, and a lot of people think I'm crazy when I say this, but it's true, and if you check it out, you'll find out that what I'm about to say here is actually true. Everybody's big on talking about chemistry and how chemistry is science, but they don't understand that engineers and scientists are still using alchemy in today's scientific fields, okay? Now, when you take a look at the things that NextRad and the things that the Doppler is doing, you start understanding things. Like environmental science, we'll just call it environmental science for now, okay? But what they do is they take radars and they focus it on the Earth, and they look at the colors of the clouds and stuff like that to try to determine what kind of weather patterns there are and what kind of heat and everything's going on according to the color of the cloud. Now, when you take a look at NextRad and the things that they're doing, you'll start noticing that they also detect precipitation and evaluate storm structures. So they're actually looking at the structures of these storms, and they're looking at the structures of the tornadoes and hurricanes, and not necessarily the storm per se by the power and force that it has, but just by how it's structured. You know what I mean? That's alchemy. That's not chemistry. That's just pure alchemy. That's what they do, you know. Now, like there is scientific stuff like measuring wind speed and direction, you know, estimating, you know, the fields and everything like that. That is science. But I'm saying, like, when they go in, or especially with Doppler, when you look at it and they got these colors on there, you need to understand that is straight up alchemy. That's not any form of what we would consider science. The same thing that they're calling pseudoscience is the same thing they're using in their methods. You know what I mean? And I find that odd. And a lot of people aren't even aware that they're doing that. Like I had Mark Wojciech on the show, and we were talking about geomancy with one episode I had Into the Abyss, you know, and
that one.
and like today they're doing a facial recognition, and people don't even understand that that's a form of geomancy. You know, and
Okay,
and
yeah.
they're having leaps in they're growing leaps in fields with freaking AI and freaking virtual reality and stuff like that, because they're using geomancy as a form of or using it in their technologies, you know. So and that's what I see with NextRad, you know. I do see that. Whenever I seen that, it kind of stuck in my head, so I did want to make a comment on that, because that was pretty cool that you guys put that up there.
Well, I think you know, the geoengineering is not. I think it's meant to confound the conversation about the anthropological climate change. You know, they basically, you know, I remember when I was a kid going to high school, there were many a days where the temperatures reached over 100 degrees, and even when I went to boot camp, we had so many Black Flag days, it wasn't even funny. And now we rarely ever hit those temperatures. So it's not global warming. The issue is not global warming. It's that they're trying to convince us that climate change is real and that we have to control human movement and everything else to protect ourselves, you know, to protect the planet. But in reality, is they're for my sense, it's another false flag. They're trying to. I mean, they're trying to I don't want to say it. They're trying to mess with the weather to make you think that you're driving a gas vehicle or eating steaks is bad for the planet. You know, you have to have an electric vehicle and you have to eat crickets, or you're destroying the planet. You know, it's you know, you're basically you're a bad person and you're destroying the planet, which is all all their arguments are BS. You can pick them apart you know, easily. The dumbest person I know can pick apart those arguments. It's just they're trying to for the brain dead sheeple that haven't unplugged from the Matrix yet. It's trying to convince them that we must give up our freedoms in order to fix the problems that humanity has brought about for the planet. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I said yeah, and I had the freaking thing muted, so sorry about that. But yeah, I do agree with you on that. The thing that I find really weary about the whole climate thing is, you know, I'm not too against, you know, I'm not hardcore against it, but I'm not for it. You know what I mean? Because I see more political motivation behind it than what I do anything else. I don't see actual science, and like Greenpeace is a good example of that. Like the actual co-founder of Greenpeace was discommunicated from the organization because he got mad about the fact that they stopped going out and sitting in front of wells to keep fishermen from killing whales, and started investing most of their money on freaking lawyers. Okay, so Greenpeace is just like infiltrated with all of these lawyers whose job it is to go all around the world and convince people that they need to put regulations in to protect the planet. You know?
Yeah.
They're not actually out doing the...
yeah, and listen, I'm not saying that we're not polluting the planet. That's a whole other story. I mean, I would say, you know, part of that is, you know, it's not like everybody's going out to the ocean on a daily basis and chucking a piece of plastic into the ocean. That's not what's happening. What's happening is, I think a lot of what we're seeing is, you know, like especially on the Pacific side, you got to remember that it's the Ring of Fire. You know, there's a lot of tsunamis that happen. You know, tidal waves will come ashore, they will grab everything that's within reach and suck it right back out. So if you have an area, like let's say, I don't know, pick any southeastern or South Asian country that is polluted, or let's say Africa. Let's say a tidal wave hit Africa and some of these poorer countries. It would suck every piece of plastic out. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's not that people are chucking it out there. It's just that a lot of it, I think a lot of it's getting sucked out, and then it's just getting sucked into this gyre, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. But that being said, there are plenty of things we can do besides using plastic. You know, we can go back to using bottles. We can use metal containers that can be recycled. There's a million things that we can do to stop pollution, but it has nothing to do with the temperature of the planet. You know, we don't need GMO crops in order to have a bountiful harvest. We can use permaculture. We can use organic farming practices. There's plenty of things that we can do. It's just they've convinced us that we have to give up our rights in order to fix the planet, and that is complete false. That is complete false. Go ahead, Mark. I can see that smile on your face.
Yeah, so can I. I was getting ready to say.
You say convinced us. Well, not all of us, obviously.
Yeah.
I find the entire. I'm not saying that we don't pollute the planet, because obviously we do.
No.
But I find the entire global warming thing amusing, because for us, US and UK, records have only been around for 150 years. We've only been studying this for the last 150 odd years. So when records begun, it's a poor excuse. And this and the argument is that we are letting out too much carbon dioxide in a lot of the arguments. But when we went to school back many decades ago now, many moons ago, we were taught that carbon dioxide is good because because trees need carbon dioxide to convert to oxygen. Oh, is fed on carbon dioxide, and then they expelled oxygen. This argument is never used anymore.
No. As a matter of fact, there was I can't remember if it was an article or a video or it was a news report or something. There's something along those lines. Basically, they said that the greenery is getting greener, and it's because of the carbon dioxide. They're saying. I just again I don't buy their arguments. I think it's all comes down to they have to make you feel guilty about having your freedom to do what you want. You know, they have to give you that guilt, and it's eventually what they want is it's 2030. I own nothing. I have no privacy. I've never been happier. They want to stack and pack cities. And, have you seen the Saudi Arabia's plans for the line?
Dubai. So is it Dubai?
Saudi Arabia.
Okay,
it's called they call it the line. So basically, they want to take all the population and put them between two walls, and basically you'll have apartments and offices and stores and whatever else between these two walls. You'll have be able to walk within 15 minutes. 15-minute walk. You're supposed to be able to get to anywhere and anything that you need. And but to me, that's just an open air prison. Where they can digitally monitor everything you do. And it wasn't a popular idea. I think it's dying in the cradle. I mean, nobody really wants to live there. But the idea that they're going to put you within a 15-mile or 15-minute walk of everything means that they don't want you to travel. I think that was the other reason why they're pushing so hard for these stupid freaking VR goggles. They don't want you to travel. They want you to go see your grandmother in her nursing home with VR goggles. No personal contact. No talking to each other over the fence, or learning, like we're doing now. You guys are in various parts of the world. I'm in Florida. We're exchanging ideas, and they want to be able to control that. If you can't speak face to face, if they can just put everybody online, they can not only monitor everything you say, but they can censor what you say.
I'm. Oh, I pause. Oh, no, still there. Just going back to global warming then for a minute. The entire this planet has gone through many cycles. I mean, as an example, the mini ice age that we saw in Europe during the 17th century. The so-called global warming and global cooling arguments is nothing new. This planet's been around for 5 billion years. Yeah, 5 billion years, and it's always changing. So that's a poor argument.
No, with me, the only thing I can say is I could see there being a freezing, but like there's no time other than before any humans were on the planet, like whenever the Earth was being formed, where we've ever had the Earth as a complete desert. I mean, it's never happened. So I could see the fact that we are eventually going to go back to an ice age. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can see that part, but like this whole global warming thing is just ridiculous.
I think it was back in the 80s that Leonard Nimoy did a documentary talking about how we were going into a global ice age. And it was, I remember watching it. Now I look back, I'm thinking, my God, this is ridiculous. I can't believe they actually sold this shit to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they actually taught us that in school when me and Nancy were kids.
Yeah.
Yep. In fact, it was an In Search of episode.
Yep.
And I think it was the year 77 when it was 1977 when they did that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
they're scaring us into saying, they're basically we're gonna not be able to farm anything. That we're gonna have like a global potato famine type of thing. It's like. That's all they do is they sell fear to, it's the Hegelian dialectic. They put out a problem, wait for the expected reaction so they can put out a pre-planned solution. So, global climate change. Oh, shit, please save us from ourselves. And
we have
they'll take your freedoms. And
ice ages before,
yeah.
The Vikings and them lived through that. So
yeah.
Around that time. So, the Earth has done lots of different things over the millennia that it's been around. And it's part of how it is, It'll get warm, it'll get cold, just like we have 4 seasons.
Now, before you guys start getting all caught up and talking about the weather and getting Raphael bored, let's get on to the really, really cool stuff, okay? Now let's get on to the Seabase X band radio. This is the one that we've been waiting for. I wanted to wait until the end to do this because I wanted to hear what Raph has to say about this. This is actually pretty interesting top right here just by itself. I mean, so.
Are you talking about the SPX1?
Yeah, the XPX1.
Okay, yeah. So I can basically it's a mobile platform. It looks like a lot like an oil rig, but it can be dragged or moved to any place on the planet. And I remember seeing a meme floating around the internet saying, "Funny how every time this storm hits, this thing's around." And I don't think it's I agree with them. It's not a coincidence. I think it's a key component. So basically, I think the HARC research was allowed them to figure out how to use high high energy output to affect weather systems. And once they refined it, they were able to use that on the Doppler radars. And then they went to next-rad, which made it more effective. And you're seeing, apparently you're seeing Doppler or next-rad towers in places that aren't anywhere near any cities or weather stations that we know of. Like this one, like Fox. We have one in Tampa. It's called, Fox 13. They have this giant weather radar on top of their building. Apparently, those are everywhere. So they have within the land masses, even including Cancun, Mexico. Apparently, that was the one that was supposedly controlling the Helene when it was over the Yucatan and spinning it up, powering it up. But between there and Florida, apparently there was some speculation there was no way to control it during that time period. So unless you have something like an SBX-1 to take over the manipulation of that storm as it's traversing the Gulf, they would have had no control until they hit Florida and they could get within range of the next-rad towers here in the United States. But yeah, that's what the XBX-1 is supposed to be. It's supposed to be weather manipulation. And was it Brian saying he actually dropped a clearer photo of the SBX-1 than I did. And you can see on the front of it, there's these looks like giant circuit breakers on the front of the platform, and that thing is just, it looks like it's just cranking power out of that dish, which sits enclosed in a white bubble.
Yeah, now I did go ahead and pull up some information so that I could kind of read it to you so you can kind of see what's going on there, the stuff that it has on there. Because I love the way that thing looks, to be honest. It looks like something out of freaking, like going to Epcot, you know what I mean? Like Epcot Center on an oil tanker. But I can read this to you right real quick. Okay, the SBX-1 is capable of operating in heavy seas and high winds and can withstand extended deployment in challenging environments. It's over 280 foot tall and has the following features. 1, a large white radome that houses the radar. 2, a crew of about 85 people. 3, a bridge, control room, living quarters, storage areas, and power generating area. Then 4, it also has a helicopter landing pad. Now, 5, it has 60 days of supplies and fuel. And the SBX-1 was developed by the United States Missile Defense Agency, the MDA, and began operations in 2006. So it's often seen in the waters of Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. The SBX-1 was also the settings for the 2022 Netflix movie Interceptor, starring Elsa Pataky, whoever the hell that is. I know of an Elsa.
Okay. Yeah. I know who she is. I can't remember what other movie she was in, but I think she was in she was in Fast and Furious. She was the Brazilian cop.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I put a shot up on the photo that you posted earlier, Mark. What Dragus Productions. That's the word. I keep trying to say his last name and I mess it up. So, but yeah, what do you have to say about that, Mark?
I need to do some more research, I think, on the specifics of it.
Well, I mean, for me, I was talking to the other Mark. I thought this might have been a little bit more.
Oh, I was hoping that Mark would pull the terms and services up on the SBX one to see the full deal, and make sure we were getting the proper information.
He did that earlier on, dude. He was a freaking rebel. That dude can't freaking just leave it alone. He just got all up in our grill and shit. And Raphael thought he was going to have to, like,
disconnected.
Yeah, that was the cool part.
Well, it's funny you're saying that it's based out of Hawaii, Hickam Air Force Base, right? You said?
Right. Yeah.
Because we didn't have a bunch of El Niños prior to '97. That was the first one that hit, and now we're getting them all the time. If I remember correctly, I think Helene actually traversed Mexico from the Pacific before it hit the Gulf and then started speeding up, if I remember correctly. That actually makes a lot of sense. It means why all of a sudden are you having hurricanes in the Pacific? And where are they generating from? It's not like we have them spinning off of Africa.
Well, the thing I get a kick out of it now isn't it supposed to be common for not very many hurricanes in the Pacific? I mean, they called it the Pacific Ocean for a reason, right? It's compared to the Atlantic.
In the Pacific Ocean, you don't have hurricanes. They don't call them that. They call them typhoons. I lived through
you're right.
many, many typhoons when I was stationed in Guam. All right?
Yeah.
Usually, there's about 5 or 6 a year. All right? But you don't hear hurricane. You hear the word typhoon and the name of the typhoon.
But when you were stationed in Guam, which direction did the typhoons travel?
East. I mean, it came from like California, and it would go past Hawaii and build up more, and it would hit Guam midway, then it would hit Philippines or Japan. That's how they go.
Yep.
They don't come
and
back.
I remember that too. When I was stationed in Japan, it was the same thing.
All right. Now they may travel up the coast of Mexico up into California. All right. But they don't go the other way. They don't go like from because of the jet stream.
Yep.
All right. The jet stream doesn't go that way. The jet stream goes the way I'm saying.
I
Something that big through the Panama Canal. That's what I want to know. There's got to be more than one of them.
Oh yeah.
no,
Yeah.
my
I'm sure of that.
my whole point that I was making though is the fact that, like, what's with all of these changes now? All of a sudden they are talking about hurricanes in the Pacific Ocean. Like, I mean, and monsoons and everything are huge waves that come in and just completely devastate your landmass. You know what I mean? Whereas a tornado or a hurricane is a freaking spinning typhoon of freaking evil that's destroying everything in its path. So I mean, and that was usually.
Here's another thing too. Typhoons are generally about double to 5 times the size of a hurricane because it has nothing to stop it from building up as it crosses the ocean. Where hurricanes, they travel a shorter distance and they don't get as big. They can get, strong, yeah, and you get, like water spouts and tornadoes no matter where you're at in the world.
Now, we have about 20 more minutes until we hit 3 hours. So what I really want to do here is, Ref, you and your wife had just gone through a pretty big ordeal there in Florida. You guys were there during the recent the tornadoes that went through there. Is there anything that you would like to say there when it comes to that, and like people that if they could reach out and help out organizations down there maybe to help out with like rebuilding and stuff of that nature that you'd like to mention?
Well, there's no real organization that I would trust. I mean, definitely do not give money to the Red Cross. The guys collected billions of dollars and built three houses in Haiti with it. The president of the Red Cross even pays herself over $600,000 a year. So, yeah, it's a waste of money. There is an organization called Team Rubicon. I think, if they're involved in relief efforts, I give some money to them. But there are a lot of people on the ground individually trying to help, especially up in North Carolina and Tennessee. But FEMA is trying to push them out, and that's an issue. That's an issue. And the thing is, part of that I'm sure is because there is, money to be made, and as much as I hate to say it, I don't think they want the recovery. There's been some speculation that they'll use they'll try to designate them a super fund site for FEMA and use it eminent domain to buy everything up for pennies on the dollar, because of the sheer destruction, and maybe they want to repurpose it. I don't know, but it makes sense to me. I mean, just based on the trends that we've been seeing, around the world with the land grabs and everything else, and the fact that they're trying to push us, from what I see, they're trying to push into stack and pack cities. I don't see any clear contender for a top-notch relief agency. Because again, I think Red Cross is just part of the establishment. They participated in Event 201 before the pandemic broke out. They were a key player, and then the catastrophe with Haiti and the money they collected and never did a damn thing with it, just tells me that they're not worth supporting. So I don't know. I'm sure I just get online, and I'm sure there's got to be. I know the Cajun Navy is up there. There's a organization out of Louisiana, and there's a cousin agency, the Florida Navy, that are trying to. They do relief, storm relief. They'll go out there with the airboats and all the flood-prone areas, the flooded areas, and try to rescue people and get them out. So I think they're a good organization to donate to.
All right. Now, do you think we should do all the cool stuff like Nancy does, and go around the room and let everybody introduce themselves and stuff? Because I'm not used to being all professional like she is. She's got this sewn up, But do you think we should do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So let's start with Mark. And Mark, remember, Mark Edworthy, you're not just a tech guy. So remember to tell them the shows that you're on. You always try to avoid the fact that you're a movie star now. So you.
Well, half the shows you mentioned is at the moment.
Well, you're still
we're
on
waiting
them.
for the next season.
You're still on them,
which
so.
won't be happening into January. But generally speaking, what am I? I'm on Red Pill Nation Hangout, except for the last couple of weeks because cold. I'm on Jeffy's show, so that's
WPRNP or something like this, the World Pirate Radio Network program.
Indeed. And obviously I've been appearing on the all-new Cafe Nickname with you and Mark.
Right.
And Raphael last couple.
Now, you're also he's also on Tech Talk, which is done with me, him, and Tanhai Tran. That's out of season right now, but he does that where we talk about technology and Tech Talk. So he does that, and then what's the other one? Roger's Real Time Talk Show event, which we do about politics and stuff of that nature. That's something he does with me. He's my co-host on there. So
Again, I do season at the moment, but
right. And after that, we got to go to that dude, Mark
Don't try. Just. Anyways, you can find me and all of my great shows that I do and stream through many, many platforms and venues at dragisproductions@gmail.com or just Dragus Productions, and you'll see the shows that I represent and go through me.
Mm-hmm. Now,
from Censorship Sucks, Paranormal Intelligence Agency, to, well, just one more episode of Cafe Enigma, and then we start Vixen's Vault with Nancy Planetta.
All right. Is that it? You wasn't as amped up as you usually are.
What's that?
You weren't as amped up as you usually are. Like they got you on the pepper salt.
Get him going.
Or the
No,
Peter salt.
Get him going with the auto tune.
I've had my lithium diet today. I drank lots of water, so I'm just kind of mellowed out.
Okay, what about you, Ruff? You wanna give out your plug?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at x_ice_, that's immigration customs enforcement _1811. The 1811 is the job category for special agent.
Okay, that it?
So you x_ice_1811, yeah.
All right. Now, with that being said, we did all the plugs and stuff. So, anybody, any last words that they want to say on the topics that we've discussed tonight?
Flat Earth!
Oh, don't.
No, I'm kidding. That's what my guys do. I'm sorry.
No, that's what you do.
That's what the Sunday guys do. They always, at the end of every show, right before every break, they want to yell out Flat Earth or Hollow Earth or something like that.
Well, there is a difference, though. Like, there's a difference.
Yeah, there sure is. One you can fall through, and the other one you can fall off of.
Like, there's two separate theories behind the flat earthers and the hollow earth. Like, you like the Nagas, don't you? You like the lore of the Nagas? That's hollow.
Oh, sure, yeah. They're
They're
part of the Draco reptilian group. That's part of our planet too. That's been around for millennia.
Well, that's for another story. That's like a really, really cool ending to a Conan the Barbarian episode, which I really think Conan's cool. So, we'll come back to that at another time and talk about Conan the Barbarian and Hollow Earth. So, Raphael, I really enjoyed you being on here.
Thanks for invite.
What do you think about the interview? Did you like it?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not like Nancy in that I can just go off the cuff. I like having issues to talk about. Like you could say, just pick a topic and then we talk about it. Yeah, I can't do small talk. I have a really hard time with it. It's just I'm not as polished as Nancy is. She's been at it for forever. But yeah, anytime you guys want to talk about politics, that's all I'm about, man. I'm just anytime you guys want, just let me know. I'll jump on.
Yeah, it's like I kind of had a clue that you were going to have some talking points, so that I went ahead and grabbed them up and everything. That way we could have a little bit of direction. That's something that Mark kind of tortured me into believing in, and like he's a bruiser. That dude, man, he has tortured and tormented me since we started. Like
I'm really gentle. I am honest. I'm really gentle.
talk about international time zones and see how gentle he is. Okay, like
Yeah.
he's the one that really got me into it. Him and Tan Hai Tran did, because like when I first started, I was never into that shit. All I wanted to do was get on here and start a stream and talk, and
Yeah.
and
No, I mean yeah. I'm not as again not as versed as Nancy in the paranormal or anything like that. I'm not. That's not my lane. But when it comes to the politics, I'm I'm looking at things from multiple angles, because I mean that warfare has morphed. It's evolved. It's what do we call it? I'm so tired.
Evolved.
Asymmetric. It's asymmetric warfare. It's they hit them on multiple fronts: economic, military, political. Just and you have to look at all. You have to look at it all and kind of try to piece it all together. I look at Russia and what they're doing over there, and I almost see how it's possible that Putin is working with Trump. There was that one behind the scenes, because again, Russia, since 9/11, Russia has put out more truth over RT than anybody, and that's why we, our political apparatus started going into the Russian interference talking points. Russia is the Russia's interfering with our country. That they even try to say that it's them that's manipulating our elections, which is complete bullshit.
Yeah.
We live in an empire of lies, and all they have to do is show us the truth. There was a great show called The Truth Seeker when they first started. I can't remember the host's name, but I remember one of the biggest episodes, one of the best episodes they did was on 9/11, and that's how when I first started looking at it from a different viewpoint. Because even when I was in, we talked about how the historical parallels between 9/11 and Nazi Germany, the rise of Nazi Germany. 9/11 was our Reichstag, and DHS was going to be the new Gestapo. And watching how it morphed from the inside, the culture changed dramatically. And we sat off. We were just sitting around, just shooting the breeze, and we talk about this stuff. It's like we saw the writing on the wall, and you need to look no further than the Patriot Act to see that they really were. Because they're all planned. Because 6,000 pages of proposed legislation was rolled out within a couple of days. I mean, very little of it actually passed, but the most draconian parts of it did. And it's just, I had a hard time coming around. I was, as a Marine, you're programmed. You're loyalty to the country, and I thought that was loyalty to the government, but the government's not loyal to us. That's the problem. You look back at, and then you got to just look at everything from a different lens. They programmed us in boot camp. Our three heroes in the Marine Corps were Dan Daly, Smedley Butler, and Smedley Butler was not only a two-time recipient of the Medal of Honor, but he was for one time. And he wrote a book, which of course they never told us about while we were in, was a book called War is a Racket. He basically described how he felt like a hired muscle for the multinational corporations, and that Al Capone was a rank amateur compared to him, because he took control of 3 continents, whereas Al Capone could only control 3 districts. Something like that, something along those lines. And you're once you start seeing the chinks in the narrative, the history that they try to portray to you, you start to realize, just dirty we are. We try to paint Iran as the bad guy, but it was us that helped Britain overthrow Mossadegh to take their oil. And then when we installed the Shah of Iran and they ousted him, he actually cleaned out Iran's coffers, and that was the reason for the embassy hostage crisis. I remember I found an interview on, it was a 60 Minutes interview or something like that, and I can't remember the reporter's name, but he was interviewing the Romania, and he said, flat out stated, the reporter saying, well, why don't you encourage them to end this hostage crisis or this hostage situation? He says, I didn't start it. They basically said that the university students were so pissed off that the Shah took all of their money, that they spontaneously in a riot just took over the embassy, trying to get them to send the Shah back to Iran to face justice and get their money back. There's a lot of things that we're never told about,
Yeah.
and they always paint us out to be the hero, but reality is we are dirty as shit on so many levels. And once you realize that, you start looking at everything differently.
I was going to say the US, Britain, and France mainly. Like yourself, I'm not really interested in paranormal aspects. More political sort of beast. I've got an interest in history, especially European warfare between the 17th century and modern day. And I see some interesting parallels at the moment. Going back to your point about seeing the change between 9/11 and seeing the parallels between 9/11 and Nazism, of the rise of Nazi Party or the NDSAP in Germany. I would say quite the opposite, because during the Weimar Republic stage, there was a lot of emphasis on left-wing socialism, let's say, and that aided in the NDSAP and becoming a actual movement, for a lack of better words, and we are seeing a sort of reverse sort of thing going on at the moment. We're seeing a lot more.
He froze up again.
Through the institutions argument. We're seeing a much more emphasis on cultural Marxism, so-called left-wing socialism. I don't like the left-wing, right-wing thing, because it's just two sides of the same coin at the end of the day. That's what
Okay, so we've
yeah,
come down to 1 minute left. Now, what I want to do is I want to extend an offer to you, Ralph, if you ever want to come onto our show on the Praetorian and have conversations like this. We do it all the time, and you'd be more than welcome. I really like the stuff that you talk about. So, if you want to if you want to do that, you can come onto our show with Roger's Real Time Talk
Absolutely.
Show. And
just send me the link.
and
I'll join when I can.
and we would love to have you and talk about stuff of political nature and stuff of that nature. But right now, this is a part about the strange conspiracy theory stuff, because this is on the wonderful world of weirdness. Okay, so well, I appreciate you having
What conspiracy theories?
Yep, so do I love them to death. But with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and end the show and say thank you guys for being here, and that is going to